Bellingham Conservation Commission. Welcome, everybody. Since all members are in attendance, I don't need to mention, as I discovered in the open meeting law, you're supposed to mention for open meetings if someone is not on site for as a member of the committee. Mention that they're on Zoom if they are and so forth, but that's not necessary tonight since our 5 current members are all in attendance. Thank you for coming, everyone. And to those that are out there, I recognize a few faces. That's good. Welcome. And those that are online only appear to be IT and Tina. Okay, great. If anyone else comes in and wants to be admitted during the meeting, we'll do so at the time that they check in. So we have a few minutes before the first hearing at 7:15, which will be the 217 Hartford Ave. I wanted to touch base on a couple of items. One is, as I mentioned, we have had some confusion over the email addresses and cell phone numbers, and I know. And that the last.
I'd like to pass this around. You guys can fill it all in and check and make sure it's right. If it's wrong, just cross it out and add it right.
Okay, so Beth had mentioned she was going to let us know of contacts at the 19th organizational meeting, I think it was, or maybe it was 26th one. I haven't seen anything since from her. Is that something that
Contacts?
I think it was going to be things like, for example, I made a note here, financial versus legal versus, I don't know, other talented people that were going to be filling in. I think the note said in minutes, 19, filling in for us when, filling in on town responsibilities in the absence of a permanent, at that time, administrator and short staffed as we were. So things that you weren't covering yourself and we're defining that.
Right.
You know, if she and you had talked that through, is there something? So I know we're about to have this next week, but if we have questions, as we may at the end during this meeting later about legal support versus financial versus bookkeeping, record keeping, how do you want to do?
So between Beth and myself, we're both pretty much covered.
Okay, so you'll share the update, obviously, the email, so we're all getting, there's been a little bit of a disconnect here with people not getting notified about meetings and hearing and information being passed on. So I'll let you guys review that. I'll take it later. Okay, we are going to need to up the ante, and I'm looking for ideas from any of the Concom members or Tim or anybody else in town. We are 2 members short for the Conservation Commission with the resignation of Matthews and with the also resignation a couple months ago now. I think it is with Brian Norton due to health reasons. So we're down from the usual 7 to 5 for the public's information, and I think what I'm going to do is try to reach out and see what town websites and web pages and blog pages and all the other pages that we can come up with a sort of brief description of the Conservation Commission, try to pop it up a little bit, make people understand how important it is and what's involved is, so they don't come into it blindly, and encourage them just to come and monitor it for a little bit, or, you know, what are they called, for classes, audit it. And no obligation, and if they find it interesting and something they want to pursue, they should definitely let us know. And the selectmen do approve the positions. It's an appointed position in the Conservation Commission, again, for record, for those that might be listening in. And it's a good thing for the town, and it's a good thing to learn a lot about the town. I've learned a lot in the last 14 years that I've been on it. And people. Yes.
Is Hannah coming on as an agent or administrator?
That is another question I have usually. I've seen both listed in the information, Tim, that you have mentioned. So,
so she's going to be the agent.
Okay, so agent. Okay, there are things that were mentioned in. I forget it was.
Not the administrator.
Both.
She's gonna be both.
So Anne had done both for a number of years. At one point in time, I think maybe back in the town's ancient history, I know we did have an agent who actively went out. I think he did some of the paperwork back in the day. You know what I'm talking about. George, yes.
George.
George Holmes, yes, thank you, who passed away. But yeah, he was an agent. So the actual, is there a defined difference, a posted job description wise responsibilities difference between an agent for the town and a conservation?
No, we do not have to.
So
It's been interchangeable, it's been interchangeable with Ian.
right. So do we have it? Was Hannah hired as she said, as an agent, but does she understand the administrative part of it? Is that incorporated into the job description that she was hired?
It's incorporated.
Okay.
So she is gonna get, she's gonna come in, she starts, now, I think She's not online now.
Next Monday.
She starts on Monday. She will be, getting up to speed, obviously, with the, hip flow.
Right.
And the process for it. And she's already, I mean, that's her field. So, she'll be getting the, she'll get a tour around the town. I'll be showing her all the notice of intents in the town, bringing her out to the jobs. She's gonna also get training. We're gonna sign her up for the MECC, get training right away. I've also had conversations with BSC, and BSC is also gonna help and help tutor her along. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, happy to do
So
that.
we're not just gonna put her in here and say, here you go. She's gonna get training, she's gonna get support, and I think she'll do. What's your last name? Hannah Crawford. I think she'll do very well.
I hope so. We want to.
And I think, she's gonna look for some support from the board as well, she's done various projects in school, on the shore. She's done a lot of shoreline stuff,
Given climate change. we might be looking at
Yeah,
something
one of these days, yeah.
Will be the-
a lot of environmental stuff she's done projects on, we think she's gonna be a great.
Seems to have a focus in her interest in climate change, based from the interviews I've heard.
Yeah, she's excited to get going, and
Is she local?
she lives in Quincy. She lives in Quincy, but she's just getting out of school. They're looking for a place to settle, so they're looking for,
Bellingham's good for that.
her husband's in real estate, and he's very flexible, is the way she put it, so we're looking forward to it.
There's some apartments still available.
Yes, there's a few, not many.
Okay, well, that's great. We look forward to welcoming her and encourage her the first day she's in. If you, I don't want to get her, deal with her first day, get overwhelmed, but to reach out to me or to other members of the Concom as she's able. And they can
Definitely.
talk to her. It'd be great.
It's a lot. There's a lot of paperwork in this position. So, it's gonna take her a little while, but she's computer savvy, and she's, knows all the latest Excel and everything, so she'll do good.
And the administrative assistant for both the planning and Concom, that person you were talking about at the last meeting, I don't know, the meeting 2 weeks ago. How's that going?
So we can talk about that now, right?
The person will be recommended to the board to be appointed on Monday to the position. And then we'll settle a start date after that point.
Just to be clear about the record, the board, you mean?
Select board, sorry.
I didn't think about
A lot
the
of boards.
Concom, but board planning board, but since there are 3 boards involved.
There's a lot of boards, yeah.
So this person is familiar with the town hall. She works in the town hall now. We posted it, and she applied for it, so.
So when it comes to the administration part of the conservation agent's job, you're expecting that she'll pick up that part-time and part-time with planning, and is that just the only 2 areas that she's doing?
No, she's doing the clerical.
Right.
She's doing the clerical. She'll be posting, she'll be advertising, she'll be, organizing all the stuff, taking all the phone calls, that come in, and,
Checking the emails.
everything.
What about things like the record keeping and bookkeeping for fees coming in, filing, and so forth?
That'll be a combination of both. They'll work together on that, as well as planning works together with that person.
Right.
As well, because that person gets all the mail and then distributes it to both of them, will distribute it to both of them. Right now, there's nobody that. So we have part-time people, and seniors come in and volunteer their time. They get a tax, break on their taxes, but that's what's going on there now. So we're creating a whole, rebuilding the office is what we had to do.
As part of that, I would encourage, since I know you sent emails out recently, under Ann Matthews' email address, I don't know, that probably that Pam online could, not tonight, but speak to you directly or to you. I think it'd be nice to have a transitional, because Anne was in the position for so long that so many people out there have not heard that she's no longer on. She actually did retire after 40 years. And I've had a couple people with the MACC, somebody there tried saying to reach out to the 2 of them. If there's a way to have emails coming into her email box before it was an auto message, auto reply, but forward it on.
We can,
And then-
IT can do that.
And then
set
stop
that.
having that go out, even to us, because I have to think, is it you? And now with Hannah, she'll have her own, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's a transitional thing, but
You're gonna start seeing all the emails.
I'm sure. Okay, great, look forward to that. I think I made 5 copies, just, I did some research on the mass.gov website for open meeting rules and regs, just for board members' references for what's kosher to do, what's not. Like I mentioned, one of the things I discovered was, in my past do during an open meeting, when you start a meeting, is to make sure that if anybody's online who's a member of the public body, you announce that publicly. I didn't know that. I'm not sure if we always done it, but we need to going forward. Due to the close to quorum level that we're at now, with one member not being in, if it means a difference for the meeting happening or not happening with 3 members, the recommendation of the Attorney General, so we do not have a meeting, we postpone it and not even have an informal discussion of things. I'm going to say that, well, we will continue to try to meet on site unless health situations with the fall and COVID and whatever changes the situation legally. If a member can't make it, I'm going to encourage them to make sure in presence because of job or travel obligations that they try to Zoom in, since that's still legal to do. I know years ago you couldn't have a remote person voting or participating in a meeting relative to listening, but we need to make sure we keep the forum, and if that makes a difference, then I'm going to make sure that we do everything we can to encourage that. And having said that, now that it's 7:15, I'll open the hearing for 217 Hartford Ave. Before I do, any members have any other thing you want to bring up at this moment? Feel free to speak up. We have a notice of intent for 217 Hartford Ave, 700,000 square foot warehouse with BBW Bank, land under water impacts under WPA with mitigation, 39,358 square feet of isolated wetland and vernal pools under bylaw with mitigation. Tonight's reps on site for the first time in
Years.
One Saturday, long time.
Jeff Curley, I see here, and Boston, and others, and so welcome. And if you want to realize, especially Austin, as you dive into things, that Steve is new, although he's been to some meetings and has been online, and he has been site.
In the field with us too, as I recall.
Maybe twice. I'm getting much twice. That one of the things we stated at the last meeting on behalf of the commission is that we're going to be utilizing BSC quite a bit more than they have in the past, and we may not be as flexible or available to keep things moving forward at the speed that it might have in the past, because Cliff, right, with 4 years experience, could approve or look at things or review things, not so much approve, but discuss things with more knowledge than what we currently possess. And so while we want to keep projects moving forward on a timely basis, it's going to require some
Dexterity.
and willingness to realize that while you guys flew along and Cliff would often just bounce off things and continue guys flying along, and we would put in our 2 cents as we felt we could, we may need to say, step back, say, wait a second, could you revisit that? Because I had, reading through the minutes from the last couple of meetings, the thought that, especially if we're meeting on site, it would be nice for the Concom, and I don't think we have one in the office here. Tim might be able to speak to that, but I believe Ann probably has some, and I know you provided some hard copy as large blueprint size site plans, just the generic site, not details, not 400 pages worth of plans, but sure, maybe half a dozen plans to cover the whole site, and then some of the other areas, because looking through and talking about some of the references to, okay, this wetland area that we were talking about was better for mitigation, whatever, and referring to the cart path and others, I remember in a blur of this one versus that one, and some comment might stir, oh yeah, I remember that one there, but where they are on the site and how they are currently being reviewed, investigated, additional tests being done, so forth, it might be helpful to have a visual reference that we can mark up and keep track of here, and certainly can bring up dates and anything else that you feel necessary. So if you could provide that, Tim,
Yeah.
do we have something down here that you know?
Oh, this is all kinds of plans.
Yeah, okay.
To your point, I would be more than happy to provide what you're talking about, overall site plan, some of the more recent exhibits that we've reviewed together that show, okay, where we're doing some of the additional testing,
Replication areas, the test.
replication areas, all that stuff. You know, there's probably a half a dozen sheets which
Yeah,
will
that's
tell
about
the
number I was
story.
thinking of that would be manageable now. We could ask for more details.
Absolutely. How many copies would you like? When we say
Well,
7 or 8 or?
does that make sense to you all? You all, that's not to have an actual hard copy to look at as opposed to plans, which we can see and we will probably get in Zoom meetings. Doesn't make sense.
I'm fine with PDF. I can zoom in and mark the drawings.
Right, but also, I'm thinking that as Austin has a big board here probably, that he might be pulling out stuff too, but do any of the members want to have a set for themselves to bring home? To? So.
PDF is fine.
I can work on it.
It's okay.
I think if we're able to get a copy, if he's.
Okay, so at least two copies, and Tim, do you
Yeah,
want?
I would say, well, how about four?
Okay,
Or it is.
thank you. Okay, without any further
Pick
ado,
it- The pick of the litter.
what's that?
And the PDFs.
And the PDFs.
Yeah, only because you asked nicely.
Um.
So
So
do we want to have them bring us up to speed at where they're at right now?
Yeah, I
Because
was
it's
just
been-
trying to think of how far back you wanted to go. It's been 4 weeks now
About a month, yeah.
since we had a meeting, and during looking at the minutes from the last meeting where you guys were here, there was a number of things that it looked like you guys were gonna go back and do some digital testing. You were hoping to have consultants or like test bits or additional exams of this building at the sites, and some of your people refer to by name, which I don't have right in front of me, but has that all been done? Some have been done?
Yes. So I thought, provided the commission's amenable to it, what I would do is give a brief history of time from where we were previously, where I personally think we should go next, have that discussion, and then we can chart a course for what we want to do in the immediate future and then the long term with how do we get to the finish line, right? So what we had talked about last hearing, say a month ago or so, right? Was we've spent a lot of time in the field. Collectively, I think we've refined and frankly improved the mitigation plan. We increased the ratio, as you recall, we're about 2 to 1 right now with the mitigation plan. What we did in support of that enhanced mitigation plan was some additional field testing. Specifically, if you recall, the area as you come in off of the Home Depot, you walk down the trail and we had that satellite parking area. And we were going to do a mitigation area there. So we tested in there. And what we found was kind of reinforced what we thought we knew in the field. There's that one area that was kind of low lying. It looked like there may be some seasonal flow that goes through there. If you remember, the leaves were kind of gladed and looked a little gray.
We thought it might be perched or.
Yeah, so we did some hand augering that Saturday morning. And we said, hey, this looks like there's some kind of restrictive layer, maybe a foot down. So we did some very strategic, non-invasive testing in that area. We found, guess what, a restrictive layer. So it looks like it's handling the seasonal flow. It's pretty consistent with where we want to do the additional mitigation. It's got a very specific boundary. So what we wanted to do, is probably work with Matt and the team just to refine that and get into the very technical specifications of how that mitigation area wants to come together. But in that area, we were very encouraged by what we found, and we think it's more than viable to do what we wanted to do in terms of surface mitigation. And to simply accommodate that, we're going to take that surface basin and put it under the parking lot. And the parking lot that works, we're confident with groundwater separations in there and that it can be accommodated. So that's kind of achieves two things. We get additional mitigation where it makes sense, and we consolidated the footprint and we pulled everything away from kind of the A series wetland that's kind of proximate to that location.
Was that parking area gonna go up a little bit anyway?
It's already elevated a little bit.
I mean, everything was gonna go up a little.
It's already elevated because we're kind of coming down into the property. That parking lot was already elevated, so it's simply just sliding the stormwater into there. It's logical. The other spot we did was kind of way in the back as you get beyond the fire turnaround that we had, that cul-de-sac area, the little bubble. We did some testing back there to make sure that we had an appropriate groundwater table and that there would be natural hydrology, if you will, to that larger mitigation area, just beyond that turnaround. And we were very happy what we found there too. So we think that area, and we walked that area in the field a little bit, if you recall, and we found some of the standing white cedar in there. And we did some testing around it just to confirm that, hey, that it looked visually viable. And now we confirmed that test bit data can support it. And what our conversation with that area was going to be is, let's be very strategic, again, working with Matt's team and the commission to keep the cedars there, maintain the grades, but just kind of rough it out a little bit to make sure it was smooth, even, and just enhance it so that it was really becoming more of a true wetland area than kind of that fringe area. Test bit data corroborates what we thought we knew too there. So 2 very good results. And then we did some just additional testing for the stormwater systems, because we jostled things around a little bit just as we were going through the technical review. And it confirmed everything we thought we knew. So it's a longer story, but that's the summary of it. And that's all done, and it confirmed everything we wanted it to confirm, so we feel good about that.
Did you done truck prior to testing on the parking lot area?
Yes. So we had done, as we moved things around just a little bit to accommodate the new one, and we did a couple of confirmatory tests where the systems may have slid out of the influence of those test bits, and we were pleased by the results. It confirmed what we had already done. So that's good. So where we are in the process now, from our vantage point, is have an improved mitigation plan. We believe, based on the kind of the scientific testing, that those locations are more than adequate and viable. The next part of it, from our perspective, is really some more technical collaboration with the commission, and perhaps, and maybe likely, with Matt and his team at BSC. The next thing for us is to design those things formally now, because we know where they want to be. We know that they are in viable locations. We feel that they're not invasive. But as you recall, during some of our early site visits, what we had talked about is, we want to make sure these are sustainable. And the team, and Andrea can speak to this if you'd like her to. Team at LSC feels really good about what we're designing, and there being historical precedent for the success of these systems. But obviously, your input and Matt's input into the formal design and kind of nuts and bolts of that, it's going to be critically important. So what we thought made sense was some kind of collaborative discussion with Matt and the team, provided the commission thought that was worthwhile, so that when we design those things formally, there's input in that, and it doesn't become incredibly iterative or guesswork, so to speak, but that it's more, let's do all the things that make sense and get the really smart wetlands and environmental people together doing this as a single unit. That's kind of where we think it wants to go, just in terms of process, particularly in light of some of the recent change that the commission's experienced, but that's for discussion with the commission, obviously.
So, Wilson, I'm making a note here, and I want to make sure I'm doing so correctly, and I'm gonna ask Matt a question.
Sure.
You want to work with, you're proposing to work, it's amenable to Concom and BSC, to work with BSC to define, well, put it words in your mouth, so say it again, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I think personally, we've defined the areas where the mitigation wants to go. Right now, there's shapes on a plan, and we have some kind of, I'd say, advanced concept grading around those areas, just to show, how we're gonna get them down to the elevations they need to be at. But the next part becomes that kind of refined and micro technical review of it. There's gonna be nuances in those mitigation areas. There's gonna wanna be discussions in detail about how the hydrology is gonna work, what's gonna be the connectivity to some of the existing resource areas. There's some technical details that are gonna be important for the next step that I want you obviously to be comfortable with. I obviously want Matt to be comfortable with as kind of your technical representative. So my suggestion would be that there be some kind of collaboration there as we get into that next phase of design.
You're getting into the precision grades and the precision.
Very much so.
Exactly, where you're tying in exact elevations now that you've got those areas of focus.
Very much so. Yep.
Dialed in.
Let me pause that for a second, Matt. In your experience, not on this particular project that we're talking about, 217 Hartford, but in general, working with the Concom in the past, want to be careful that we're not, setting a precedent that we may not want to, or, because I do remember conversations about how Concom has or hasn't in the past over the last 14 years said yes or no when working with, in that way that you're proposing, I think, or something close to it. And I'm going to paraphrase, and we certainly don't want to have Matt being paid by you to do work for us to help you define the plans, then just sort of overstand because you had to work. Basically, reviewing stuff with you and talking to you, exchanging information, that kind of thing has happened in the past, even on this project. And Matt, what do you think about what Austin is proposing here? And do you quantify it in any way differently that you think in the past what we've done was to?
I think that it could certainly help kind of push the design concepts along, but I think your point is important, making sure that I'm not, that I'm providing more of a, I don't know, sounding board, kind of taking Andrea and your design thinking and hearing that and responding to it from from the technical scientific point of view, as opposed to helping you come up with the design parameter.
Yeah, and I think you just said, I think you said it really well. So the idea isn't that that's giving us the answers to the test, so to speak. The idea is that we're going to put forth, let's say we advance the design to kind of a schematic level where we've taken to the next set of details. And then have Andrea and her team confer with Matt to make sure that when we're at the which way sign, we don't go left and Matt wanted us to go right. It's just more, let's step through this logically and have Matt be that sounding board, so to speak, to make sure that he's on board with the scientific approach, that it's still generally the right direction, but not having Matt design it, but more be our, perhaps the commission's clearinghouse, if you will, to make sure technically we're aligned and kind of lockstep.
If, I can tell
Stephen and
you,
Tim, that's,
in short, you're proposing working meetings.
Yeah, that's a very
Fully
succinct way of
support
saying it,
that.
yes.
And I think I'm just clarifying my understanding. It's important that Matt remains accountable to us.
not just that, I think part of the concern I had in the past was, or not concern, consideration, and Neil, you're the best person for this, because you've been around more than anybody else for these kind of things. That in the past, we wanted to make sure that the commission is receiving the information either only in the meeting or just before the meeting on a timely basis to review and discuss in the meeting. And that it has, while it may be reviewed and recommended formally as a back and forth exchange, okay, our consultant raises points about a proposal you have for various design things, you respond, he responds back, and so forth, then we read all that, but that in the past, I think the Conservation Commission, mainly because of Cliff's and Ann's experience, has asked that any communication come through them. And unless the commission members, and feel free if you do, or Tim, feels that that should remain exactly that way, my point would be that while I do want to move things along in a timely manner, that I do want to make sure the procedure is very transparently that we are receiving information at least at the same time and way that that is, even if we don't have the expertise that he does or to review things at that micro level, certainly not, and maybe even some of the macro level stuff. I don't want to slow it down. I'm not going to stick my foot in. I'm going to try to say, I don't think this environmental makes sense if I don't have a sound basis for doing that. But I think it's important that we're getting that information, not after the fact, working meetings are done, and oh, here it is, and it's pretty much done. Matt's checked up on all this, and then we're supposed to say, okay, I guess we don't really have to ask our consultant if he really thinks that this makes sense because he's been working right away with them. On the other hand, it does make some sense.
There's a public perception that needs to be managed.
Right, and I'm not sure the best way to do that from.
So I think what Austin is saying is, look, he doesn't want to design this whole project and then go back and change, half the design. I think what they want to do is get to a point, get over a couple of hurdles and present it to BSC and have BSC review it and then make a recommendation to the board. BSC isn't approving anything. It's the board that's going to approve it and take his recommendation. Now,
To design towards a defined direction rather than being reactive. Blank design, respond, blank design,
yes, I think
respond.
this is a big project.
Yeah.
And they don't want to get ahead of themselves. They want to tackle each issue and work toward a goal. So I think.
Right, and I agree in the to keep this moving forward, that's a more productive process than waiting, another 2 weeks or another month to come back and ask that question.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question involved?
Sure.
Outline the mechanics of what you think that meeting would look like, where it would take place, who would be there, that kind of
Sure.
thing. In the vein of managing public perception and maintaining the openness of public meetings.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this isn't a new concept, obviously. So historically and customarily, what we have done is we've run that communication through the commission's liaison. If that's your agent, historically it's been Ann for decades. It's been Ann. And even in some of those meetings where we're working through some of these refined technical discussions with your representative in the room, we've had a commission liaison, one who the communications get funneled through. So it's kind of going through the appropriate channels and following proper protocol. Two, that person is frequently attending, if not always attending the meeting.
Where are these meetings?
Right here, usually right here, we'll do it in one of the conference rooms or something, and it's an hour long or something, and that person's there. What we'll do, we'll have a discussion about what makes sense. Here's what we're putting forth. What do you think? What's some of your initial feedback? How do we refine and collaborate on this thing? And then what we'll do is we'll all take notes, and then a summary of that meeting would be distributed to the members of the commission. And then at the public hearing, we would talk about what was discussed at that meeting using those meeting notes. And that becomes kind of our framework for the discussion of the things we kind of worked through with your technical representative in the meeting. Get your feedback on it to make sure that you are in agreement as the commission and set some direction coming out of that next discussion. So that's kind of how we control the public process. Nobody feels like it's some kind of clandestine meeting where there's stuff happening. It's all funneled through your representatives, and there's members of the commission or your liaison present.
If it's helpful, we've done and interacted with Dominic at BSC's office in a very similar fashion at the planning board, as part of the planning board process. Jim and Amy, those meetings happen to be on Zoom. They could be in person either way. Jim and Amy have attended those. Dominic is there, and we're kind of making sure we understand content of the comment that's been provided by BSC, and just making sure we're providing a wholesome response. This would be a lot more technical minutia. That it'd be great to have access to Matt for sounding board purposes, things like that. But to Austin's point, there'd be minutes kept, there'd be correspondence back and forth between the two groups, and all of that would be disclosed at a meeting.
Then it would be presented to the.
At a public hearing.
Yeah.
And presented to the board.
That would be
Exactly.
a good
That's
overlap.
the way we've done
It
that.
doesn't go anywhere until it's presented to the board.
Matt, are you comfortable with this format?
To the extent that the board is, sure. I think it could be an effective way to move forward. But I do want to be careful with your,
No, and then we could try it if it doesn't work. I mean, we could stop.
It's not a new concept. It's not a new
No,
concept.
no,
It sounds
I-
good.
yeah.
And the commission always you have a representative there, there's a liaison, maybe it's a member of the commission, just as kind of oversight. Frequently and always, it's been Anne, because she's been the agent, and then all the communication, if it's coming in.
I was reluctant to
I'll be
volunteer
with- I'll be
somebody
with
whose
you.
first day of job is next week.
Yeah.
To get into a sit down.
Oh, it's gonna be fine.
I would hope as many as the members want to attend.
But on the other hand, exactly, if there's a member available and you can come down, by all means, you want to make.
I was gonna say our schedules, given that most of the members, not all, but most of the members work out of town during the weekdays, that if your meetings happen, because Ann worked here, was in the office there, and Cliff was often down the street, literally a half mile. If he was in town, we're able to pop over if he needed to be around as another representative. That's gonna be less likely to be the case. I don't wanna throw Anna under the bus, but I would be much more comfortable if the meeting didn't happen unless Matt had somebody else from either the Conservation Commission, Tim, Hannah,
Of that, but I'm not available during business hours.
so. Okay, well, having at least broached that, that's good. Sounds like there's some room to try to talk about some schedules and see if that looks like it makes sense to, no, you haven't had anything to say, and have any input on that, do you think?
So I think it's very beneficial.
Okay. But you are.
I think it could be beneficial, but I want to look into potential legal repercussions.
So let's not move beyond the scheduling point. I think you're probably talking a week or two out before you're ready to do this anyway, correct? I mean, you may be ready tomorrow, but we are
Last week.
probably not going to be ready.
Jeff told me I was ready yesterday.
I hear you. So having covered how we might proceed with getting into minutia, my question is now, there were a number, and reading through the minutes briefly, I did not have time to make notes of them, but I think some of the other Concom members are aware of them. There, and you certainly guys are. There have been some other issues that the commission, as capital C, has had with the project overall, the size of the project, the access road, the cul-de-sac, the parking numbers, planning board questions that relate to us that are still, or were still under discussion. I haven't had a chance to talk to Jim Pepper about it, any of that, and where we are currently. Have you had a meeting with planning board since our last meeting?
Not since our last meeting. We're meeting with the planning board tomorrow night.
I
but
think you probably have.
we did have, I think we touched on this fairly briefly. at our prior discussion with this commission regarding, so one of the things that had been a topic of discussion on multiple occasions was the overall footprint of the project, specifically the parking. And that has also been something that the planning board was focused on through Matt's counterparts at BSC, their peer review. What we ultimately came to, what I think is a very good solution to that. So what we've done is we've reduced the overall parking footprint. One of the areas that we've shrunk, if you will, was also down near that fire turnaround, kind of the cul-de-sac at the end of the project. The commission expressed some concern about the proximity of one of those wetland systems. So we eliminated some parking down there, and then we shrunk it and made those spaces compact. So it substantially reduced that footprint. And what we ended up doing was relocating those spaces up to the, I'm gonna call it the upper left corner of the project, where we had some additional room that was outside of, buffer zones or wetlands. We put some parking up there. And then that satellite parking area where we're talking about that mitigation and putting the stormwater under the parking lot. We made that compact spaces and got some additional parking in there. So net, we're neutral in the parking, because for us operationally, the total parking count is critical to the viability of the project, the marketability of the project, and everything that we're hearing in terms of interest in the property. They want that operational expectation for parking. So that's important. What we did do was make a lot of those spaces compact, shrink them up. And what it's caused us to do is seek additional relief for that, because we're exceeding the number of compact spaces that is required in the ordinance. However, the planning board supports that because they wanted to see the reduction in impervious surface. It's a waiver we can get through the planning board, and the peer review team has expressed support for that.
I was under the impression that the planning board wasn't as concerned about reducing the impervious area, which is more of a Concom purview, than reducing the number of car spaces. And my recollection of reading the minutes was that the planning board comments were that, and this was referred to by commission members, not at some of these meetings, that the planning board didn't necessarily think that you needed all those parking spaces, period, the number of spaces. So reducing them to compact, reducing the impervious, that can be a beneficial thing from Concom point of view. Just impervious, less impervious is great, I think, from our point of view. But I thought the planning board more cared about the number of spaces that they really didn't warrant in their view at that time. And that's why I hadn't talked to Jim Cupper about what he thinks, or what the planning board's feeling is on that stuff. And that the cul-de-sac in general, I think the whole length of the satellite part, the parking along it, I don't call it satellite parking, the parking along it, was maybe either not necessary at all, or in a much reduced, not just make the spaces smaller, make them subcompact cars or compact cars instead of regular, but just don't need it, don't want it. And because partly that cul-de-sac does go into an area that was going to be tested again. That's one of those things that I think was up for the last.
Talk about that in a second. Yeah.
So as a potential wetland, it's not just near it, is actually part of that area. So I think what I wanted to do was mention some of the bigger issues, because while it's great to proceed potentially with Matt as some sort of working relationship, first meetings, some of the I hate to move to you guys said I hate to invest all that time, Tim. So I hate to have you guys invest all that time and effort on getting the minutia squared away when something like, oh, you didn't meet the 2:1 mitigation, or you can't deal with wetlands replication areas, to meet the requirements of the law, and without asking for, a major waiver or variance. Those need to not be forgotten. I'm not going to get into any more than that, but I just don't want to forget, while we seem to be moving forward in one area, or potentially moving forward in one area, to not forget that there's some other still
was seeking a variance from the zoning bylaw as it originally proposed. To Austin's point, when we came back and looked at shrinking footprint, there was a component of BSC's concern that was stormwater related and therefore impervious surface related. But we understood it was also a question the Conservation Commission had as well. I think the planning board was looking at other similar projects that are more specifically distribution center projects. This one has been proposed, has been analyzed from a traffic perspective to be a distribution center project that was largely necessary to drive the 25% design and the pursuit of funding for the 126 corridor improvements. The reality of the marketplace, however, is that more and more of these buildings are making a shift to what the industry refers to as a flex industrial building. So there's a variety of potential end users that could show up in this building. To Steve's point, it is a spec building at this point. We do very much want to get out in the marketplace and advertise, and we just need to know we have something concrete to advertise. So we're trying to get through at least the local permit process before we do that. But there are life science uses, light manufacturing uses, things like that. And depending on the ultimate mix of users or single user, to remain competitive in that marketplace, all the feedback we're getting from the brokerage folks is this is the sweet spot you want to stay in, which is why when we were charged with trying to find reduction in that impervious surface, I said to Austin, let's do it. Let's move some things around, introduce compact spaces. I think I'm comfortable going back, seeking further relief for more compact spaces as a percentage of the overall parking required than the bylaw allows, which is what Austin mentioned we're going to do. But the number is critical to us. The ratio is critical to us. I think we did lose, I don't know, 10 or 11
20
parking spaces as part of this exercise, but we're trying to maintain an overall parking number ratio here to ensure viability in the marketplace for the prospective end users we think are going to be interested in this project.
As
That's
we were
what's driving the thinking.
as we're kind of exploring what's the real root of that comment because it showed up as part of some of the public discussions, but anecdotally, and it showed up obviously in the comments that BSC had provided. When we really explored that comment, what the real impetus behind it was, hey, let's try and get more compact impervious footprint here. So what we did, we had a number of discussions on it, and we finally got to a compromise point where it was, we've reduced the impervious footprint satisfactory to the BSC team, the planning board's perspective, but also have maintained that operational floor, if you will, in terms of the parking aspects that Jeff just articulated. So it was more to your question about, hey, there's too many parking spaces. The real driver behind that was, we think you can reduce the impervious surface, which we've achieved, and we still find the harmony spot between operational flexibility.
And your numbers, you're going to meet the performance standards with this reduced impervious footprint.
When you say performance standards with respect
Or
to,
stormwater.
yeah, very much so. Nothing's changed. Yeah.
And has that gotten any better because of that? Is that, have you improved that a little bit? Or you were pretty, you were hard up on it.
We were okay. We had some room in there. Don't tell this to Jeff, but I really haven't shrunk the systems that much. So I still have a little bit more freeboard in there now than I did before, because the impervious footprint just got a little bit more compact. Don't tell him.
I'm going to put pause on because just to tell the board members, we are on for a 7:45 hearing, and I do see some people both online and one individual in the room who I don't recognize who might be here for are you here for 8:30 here? Yeah. Okay, just checking things. So we have some people online that I believe
A Hunt is for Bernie.
Oh, yeah, do we have to see this?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
That may be, that may be the.
Okay. So I don't want to hold them at this point in time. Let me just see, you're gonna meet the planning board next week.
Tomorrow.
Right, sorry, I missed it tomorrow. It'll seem like next week, probably. And is it your anticipation that you're gonna be ready to potentially move ahead with some of the meeting stuff? I know you said you're ready yesterday, Jeff said to you, but you could proceed with that sometime between now and the next meeting. I think what we want to do, hearing some of them other members, is move forward, but very cautiously and with some review of making sure what precedents and what information we need to get in what order is. So the proposed order of mechanics is Steve, I think, asked, if you could shoot an email to Tim and the board and say, this is what we're proposing doing for a meeting, so that we have that all hearing the same thing and seeing the same thing.
I'd be
And then
comfortable with committing to one or two and then review for further.
As long as, we haven't by setting a precedent, so, okay, now that we
Yeah,
have,
just lay out-
not you guys,
Lay out
but everybody.
lay out the communication steps and the paperwork steps back and forth.
Communication.
And we'll have something
There are no decisions being made.
I'd be more comfortable knowing, they're gonna do this,
Yep.
we're gonna get this, they're gonna do that, we're gonna get this, then we're gonna come back here. Just that flow.
Again, I think the process would only enhance the collective forward motion.
Okay, so one of the things that I was going to bring up later in the meeting under housekeeping where it's is potentially scheduling future meetings, but since this group here is ready to hear a potential future meeting date and or time, I'm gonna stay with that format for just now, but I think we have a discussion that we need to start at least tonight with potential scheduling future meetings, having fixed time versus something more like the time the board does, which I want to bring up at another time, but I would ask Tim first, since you have what we have on the calendar for the 23rd. Yeah. I think we have at least two things to get that were in the last meeting, but I'm not sure. I might have 1 minute. Yeah. Zero Maple Street is good for until the 23rd at 7:30, and
The next meeting is full.
no, the 23rd of August. Yes, Wednesday for now.
Next is fairly full.
I'm, that's what we're trying to determine. I don't want to stick something in it. We have a 7:15. I see that continued for Zero Railroad, and we have an 8:15 also. So we have a.
There's 7:00, no, that's September, sorry.
Yeah,
We have an 8:15.
a 7:15 is Zero Railroad. 7:30 is Zero Maple and and Blackstone Street and North Street is at 8:15. So do you know if we have anything after that, Tim? That's my question.
No, we do have one notice of intent, but it was incomplete, and that is it's Blackstone, it's gonna be Blackstone Street is not on here, but we just got the information in, so
So
that
you
will
think
be
it's-
on, yeah, that's gonna be going on the agenda.
So-
I believe that is a septic repair. That's gonna
Oh,
be-
so it's not the Blackstone Street project?
No,
Maybe
no,
not.
no,
Okay,
it's
that
just
one.
a septic repair.
You said Blackstone, okay, okay. All right, so that could be stuck in wherever. I'm thinking that we then would not want, let's see, when it's 8:15. Bear with me a minute here, I should make sure. Blackstone North, so Blackstone, so do you think that Blackstone North is gonna be continued?
I don't know. They're going through planning board now. They're gonna be on, the meeting tomorrow night, so I guess we'll have to see what happens then.
Okay,
They haven't committed.
based on our time schedule, I think we'll do something we've done in the past, which is if we have Blackstone. Accept a motion for hearing, continuing this, 217 Hartford Ave to Wednesday, the 23rd at, we'll give Blackstone North 15 minutes. If they need more time than that because they've got their act together, we'll just continue that to later.
Continue that to later.
And we give you guys a block 8:30.
Up at 8:30.
That work for you? So at that point in time, I know us, and I'm sorry, we're just running out of time, but we got some stuff covered, and as I said, we're gonna back up a little bit before we go forward, I think some of us. You have some other stuff you're gonna be able to dive into, so,
Is there anything quick that you wanted to, put out there, or are you guys good?
I think we're okay. I mean, we'll get you the email that the board is requesting that lays out what we think for the relationship with VSC going forward. If we can make some hay between now and the 23rd, we certainly would try to, and come back with a full report of that and see how that goes.
I was gonna ask you, would there be a potential meeting in this format before the
I
23rd?
certainly would like there to be, yeah.
Where that information is being
If we can-
presented?
well, let me ask the commission members if they feel comfortable in doing a meeting between now and the 23rd to move things along, so let's see how it goes.
Absolutely.
Report back on that, and then without a commitment that we would continue to allow that kind of meeting. If we see
Yes.
something in legal reviews and talking to amongst ourselves or other people that we find that there's a reason to not do, or Matt says, hey, this is not working for me, please take me out of here. I never say that to
You're
you.
talking about a workshop meeting?
Yeah.
I would be okay with that.
I have one question, is after hours or weekend available as a group, so I could attend?
Prefer after hours to weekends if possible.
Agreed.
So would people at home.
I can make 6 or later.
Okay.
Can you do it? Can you do it?
Yeah, typically, unless I have other commitments with.
Thank you.
I suggest to schedule a week or so out, so that gives some of the commission members a
Yeah,
to
no,
make it a
for
chance.
clarity, we'll get the email to Tim and Hannah if she's, we'll explain what we think the process is. If you guys. And then we'll talk to Matt about the schedule.
All right, so, since we seem to be in agreement on that, I will ask whether the commission, somebody wants to make a motion for that, moving, or continuing this hearing till
I
23rd at 8:30 PM.
so moved.
Second.
Mary Ann, thank you. All, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Just even 3 dimensions.
I know, right?
Thank you.
Good night.
Your once you jump right in, apologies to whoever's online, since no one's in the room for 8 Bernier Lane. We are going to proceed right into that with you. Is that, oh, there we go. Is it Adam?
Yes.
Adam. Well,
Hi.
you hear us okay?
Yep.
And we can hear you. Your mouth is moving same time as your lips, which
All right,
watching
great.
who didn't know last time we were in the midst of a presentation by you, and unfortunately technology just exceeded our abilities and behaved as it wanted to, which wasn't to allow us to hear you. So hopefully that'll go more smoothly. You have been, I understand, able to provide some of the requests. I think we had 2 or 3 requests for information. It looks like we've
Yes.
received a set of plans I have sitting here on the desk, which some of the members were looking at for earlier. Do you want to share your screen and call that up in case either somebody online or the other members in the room want to take a quick look at it?
This drawing was not transmitted in the Dropbox.
Correct. I believe,
Correct.
Adam, this just came into our possession.
Adam, so this is the plan that you forwarded with the reflecting the request of the board for the hay bales to return to the house, the front corners of the house. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm not, I'm just trying to share my screen now.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Let me first officially open the hearing for 8 Bernier Lane septic system repair. Applicant Wendy Housen of Plainville, Mass, and representative today online, Adam Hunter of Level Design Group. And we are going to try to share the screen if we can, Pam, with Adam.
I did give him the ability to share his screen.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Looks like we're getting it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Adam, if you would point out the hay bale, the erosion control that the board requested. Is that the heavy dock line, the square?
Yes, right here. This is extended here. Previously, I just trimmed it back to here and returned it to the house corner, also on this side as well. And as far as the erosion control, that was it.
So the other item that the board was looking for at the last meeting was, they were looking for the groundwater, the perk test and the results for the perk test.
I supplied a copy of the septic plan, which I can switch over to. And I've also contacted the Board of Health. They had no major issues other than showing the sleeve on the water line, which I've added. I forwarded that to Tim earlier.
Excuse me, I just want to verify what you just said, or can define a little better. You said they had no problem with, last meeting, you stated that the Board of Health received the plan, but hadn't heard back yet regarding approval. Are you stating tonight that they gave approval or just that they didn't have any problems, but they haven't?
No, he has yet to fully review it, but just on a quick review,
It was not yet.
That was- yeah.
I talked to him. He had a comment on it. But he said,
He meaning,
our review.
okay,
engineer, yeah. So, he had a question about the sleeve. Was it a water sleeve? Is it for the water line?
for the water line, yeah,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
sewer.
But other than that, he was okay with the design.
so we anticipate approval.
Yes.
So we're back to the question.
But we don't have it yet.
It may be approved right now. Yeah, that was a couple of days ago.
So the question remains, is the leach field in the water table?
Adam, you want to address that?
It has 2 feet of separation. The groundwater is estimated to be 230.7 high groundwater. The bottom of the system is 232.7. And the reduced separation is due to the fact that the majority of the treatment occurs within the Advantech system itself, recirculating through the tank and the pump chamber. Essentially gets pumped up, circulates back down through and back into the tank until eventually goes out into the field. But because it's so pre-treated, that's where the reduced separation comes from in the leach fields.
So on existing, I don't know if we do or not, but, you know, on existing dwellings, you know, they accommodate the groundwater separation. They're giving them relief of 2-foot separation because of this special system.
Well, we also don't have much choice in the
No.
location of the building right next to like our
Right,
office,
right.
so I'm just.
The goal,
Have not heard of this system before. I don't think any of the members have, and not having much in the way of details. I was-
The treatment area of the system is only gonna be about 1.5 feet high, because if it's 2 feet, if it's 2 feet from ground to groundwater, and they've gotta have some cover.
so this
It's
is a,
about 1.5 feet tall system.
Are they raising the bed?
No,
It's gonna be a pure.
You're not raising the bed.
It's gonna be level surface.
it's a treatment box more than anything. What is the actual, what is the actual terminology of this system, Adam?
A bottomless sand filter.
Okay, bottomless sand filter.
Which is what's the expression?
Oxymoron.
An oxymoron, misnomer. whatever
Yes,
you want to
it
call it.
certainly
It
is.
shouldn't be called that because it's.
No,
not endless,
I don't like the
bottomless,
misnomer.
Or anything else.
But,
Just like buffets, they're
right.
not endless buffets, even if.
So-
that.
So the Board of Health regulates the water separation in
Yeah,
this situation. So,
We're just trying to get a handle on it.
yeah, the most important thing here is containing, because they are excavating, they are in the buffer zone.
Well,
They're on the outside edge of the buffer zone, but it's a tight site.
right, but we're also
You know?
next to a major water
Yeah,
body in
yeah,
town, and
yeah.
I think the commission's purview and ability to question this is not based on the science of the system, but just understanding that we aren't putting something in my view, so new or so untried, that, oh yeah, this is a prototype though, and it should work great, and then find we have a breakout situation, and now it's flowing, it's like, forget about the neighbors, forget about the person in the house. The overall environment, as well as the neighbors and the person in the house, are gonna be negatively affected big time, and
So I wonder how new this system is.
that's one of the details.
Go ahead and ask. I was gonna ask that.
So, Adam, can you reference, Tim said he doesn't think we have anything like this system in town, but can you tell us how long this type of system, whatever the model name, whatever it's called, brand, whatever is been out?
I don't know for sure, but it's probably at least a few years. I know I've heard them being used.
Have you designed it anywhere else?
I have not. Personally, no.
Or somebody else in your office there, or I don't know.
Not in the current office I currently work, at other offices.
Do we have any references of where these are installed and working properly?
I don't with me right now.
Are these more coastal, systems, this more like a coastal?
We don't know, we've never heard of it.
Is it?
Companies used it in Providence,
Yeah,
but I think that it had another part, like the sand filter was the equivalent of.
Secondary treatment or tertiary treatment.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's a dosing system as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
From the pump chamber,
yes.
regulated. Not just continuous.
No.
Any error here, miscalculation, mishap. The lake is so close.
Yeah, I mean,
Not,
right now it's a failed system. Right now it's a failed.
Right,
system.
it's not good. I think we all agree we want to remediate it somehow.
Yeah.
Fail systems are always a top priority, get something done, whatever it can be. We've made allowances and variances have been made and so forth, projects over the years, I know. Matt, you were.
I was just thinking, the applicant may be able to come up with some evidence of this system being installed and working.
Yeah, Adam, do you, I know you're getting the system from somebody, correct? You're buying it, you're not making it yourself.
Right.
Okay, so can you go to that manufacturer, distributor, whoever, and get some client references, basically, is what we're looking for? Locations in the Massachusetts area, I don't want to deal with South Carolina or something like that, that have
Sure.
had them put in. I mean, I'm sure they've sold it to other people, I hope the first person to get it, if you are,
Successful applications.
and successful applications that they can give us supply references, ideally say something that's been in place for a number of years, ideally, they've only been around for 5 years, let's say, and they're not gonna have references more than 5 years old, but we'll take what we can get, the longer they've been in successfully, the better, and
Life expectancy.
life expectancy, and then the last thing was, well, yeah, maintenance plan. Do you have a maintenance plan already included with this, Adam, for cleaning it out and whatever refreshing, recharging the system might have to be done periodically, back flushing it, so to speak?
I don't know if it's
there no one in?
within the notes.
I can't.
I'm
really
not
find
sure
it.
if the initial calculations submitted with it may have, but not on the plan.
Okay.
So I'm not-
We'd be curious, as we do often ask for O and M plans. Well, granted, this is a septic system and really, I don't want to step on the health, Board of Health's feet, but we want to make sure that if there is a maintenance, it's gonna, again, affect a water body that's a major resource in town, negatively. So just understanding it better, not to tweak it.
I think it might be a good idea to maybe, talk to the Board of Health. Maybe, yeah, I'm sure they could give us a better explanation
Well,
as to the system.
they're approving it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So Adam, you've got.
Yeah, and if there is an O and M plan for these,
For
Board of Health.
Board of Health, that would be Vinnie Foy at this
with the
point.
pump and the chamber and everything, if there is an O and M plan on these, we would want to have that reference it into the order.
The pump is an electric pump.
Yes.
We had this recently during a power failure. How long can the system go?
So systems are designed, pumps are designed to have capacity, the floats in them, they're designed to have, they're designed to have a certain percentage of capacity, before, in that situation.
Understand.
Given this is a different system, it's not your
Yeah,
typical.
yeah, this has a pump chamber and it's pumped up to this box for that leaches into this box, into the sand, and it's dosed probably, it's probably a timed thing, it's probably on a time clock. But yeah, I don't know.
We asked this question at the last one we approved, and they had, was it 3 days?
Yeah, it's 3 days and then potentially for a couple more days if the chamber starts filling after it fills to go into the, from the main tank to the pump chamber. So they were estimating, not without somebody flushing nonstop or whatever,
That's
that they
the-
get about 3 or 4 days. Now beyond that, they'd have to have them become a pump. That's what the minutes said. So yeah, I think it's a good point, Steve. So I guess we're looking for some more information about the system. Adam, do you think that that's something you can provide fairly quickly to Tim for us to be sent?
Yeah, so you're just looking for locations in Mass where it's been used or plans have been submitted for and approved. And their general duration.
Yeah, like the length of expectancy, if they're warranting it for, 10 years or something, there's the mechanical parts of the system or the overall design. I don't know what kind of warranty they give on that kind of a system, but having a new creature, so to speak, coming into existence, we will talk to, just FYI, for transparency, we'll talk to Vinnie. Is it Vinnie? Yeah. Vinnie in the Board of Health. Feel free to talk to him yourself as you feel you can or need to. And see if he has any experience with dealing with this or understands the system better than we do. And we'll relay our concerns, again, Conservation Commission concerns that tie, in this case, fairly closely to the Board of Health ones, that the system is something that won't be causing us problems in the short term or potentially in the long term. We don't even know what the long term is for this system. But I want to also reinforce to you to tell your client there that we are not saying no to the project. We just want to make sure we understand fully what's going on with it and we want to move things along with it.
We can't stay in a position where we've accepted something we don't even know if it works properly.
Right, and that's why I want to talk to the Board of Health. The Board of Health may say, oh no, we're comfortable with this because of X, Y, Z. We've seen it. Maybe they've done some legwork, but apparently Adam doesn't know if Vinnie knows about it, the Board of Health, what their level of knowledge is. And he again is on the wetland side. We recognize too, we're putting you a little on the spot. You mentioned this at the last meeting, that you didn't really design the system. You understand some of it. You were here for the installation and wetlands protection aspect of it, correct?
For the testing, and I prepared the
Testing.
notice of intent portion of it, yes.
Right, okay.
So, Adam, how many gallons a day is this designed for? How many bedrooms?
I believe it is, sorry, hold on 1 second. It is 2 bedroom, 2 bedroom.
It's currently a 3-bedroom, I can't read the plan.
Sorry.
Just says 1-story dwelling.
It should say.
Yeah, it does, that doesn't label it, it's just on the calculations.
So how many gallons a day is it calc for? Is it 330?
220.
220, so it's a
2-bedroom.
two-bedroom.
And it's a 1,500 gallon. So plenty of capacity.
Yeah, capacity depends.
Plenty of capacity there for a few days.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
The O and M plan. O and M plan.
On the next meeting.
Yeah, I wonder if this is holding up. a sale to the house.
And then the O and M plan too, Adam, if you could get that from, the person that designed the system itself or the
Manufacturer.
manufacturer.
Manufacturers O&M, okay,
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
we'd like to have a copy of that too.
Sure. no problem.
There may be pumping requirements, there might be maintenance requirements on the pump itself or the chamber, et cetera. So we just want to have that documented.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam, sorry, do you know if the current applicant, is she Wendy Housen, the property owner? Does she live there? Is she the resident?
I don't know if.
She has a
she's-
plain address, that's what I'm wondering. I don't know if she, just don't. My question is, do you know if they're pumping the system currently? And if so, how often? Has it
I
failed?
don't know currently what the
It's-
situation is with
Is the
that.
system failing or failed?
It's failed.
Okay, so,
It was a distribution box failure,
okay, oh, D-box. So they're pumping the tank. How big is the tank that's there now? I thought they were gonna.
or at least that's where this failure was isolated based on the testing in the D box.
Okay, so again, a quick question. How big is the existing septic tank? And I think you told us last time that the plan was to get rid of the existing tank and put a new one in, correct? Pumping chamber.
I'm not sure if it's just in bad shape or if it's undersized, if it is a 1,000-gallon tank.
Gotta go pump.
If that's why we're replacing it.
So what they're doing is they're putting in a septic tank, 1,500 gallon tank.
Mhm.
And that's gonna contain all the solids, and then it's going to a pump tank, which is probably 1,000 generally. And then that pump tank pumps up to this septic box, leach field box.
Right. which is
So
sand.
there's gonna be a septic tank that holds the solids, flows into a pump, another tank, which is gonna then pump up to this box. That's what the system, that's what he has here.
So 1,500 gallon solid tank is gonna get solid pretty soon, and then it's going to need to be pumped. So that's part of the O and M perhaps, but based on the use of the.
Basically like a septic system, except for it's being pumped up, so it leaches.
You don't need to pump your tank every few years.
It's raised.
No, I haven't put one number of years. I treat it, but regularly, but not.
Get it done.
Yeah,
So, so I
Okay.
don't know, I didn't know if you guys wanna, do an approval based on.
Well, if-
Providing something.
yeah, I think if we were in a different mode, say, a couple months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, I think that the administrator, we would probably proceed with the approval based on receiving the additional information, not seeing any issues with it, which we would have passed to us and have you come back at the next meeting to expedite things and keep things moving for a failed system on the lake. Based on not seeing anything remarkably disturbing, and then you could have it signed at the next meeting and receive it at that meeting, basically.
Well, we won't have it, we won't have it till the next meeting at this point anyway.
Right. We'd always have, as soon as you would get it, would be by the next meeting probably, because even if we approved it tonight, and I think we saw some questions. We'd always don't want to put it off for 2 more weeks and then another 2 weeks to draw up the approval. Order of conditions. So I think that if that's amenable to the group, we would ask Adam to get the information ASAP, knowing that if he doesn't get it to us, or if the information that comes in is, or the Board of Health, conversation with Board of Health is disturbing, and then we have some real ramifications, we can hold it, but that we would prepare the order of conditions for signing at the next meeting and release to you if we have received the information that we're requesting and everything seems to be in order, and we don't have any issues with it. Board of Health, does that make sense?
Yes,
And we'll receive this information.
prior.
Well, how? Electronically via Tim. So
Yes.
Adam, you're gonna forward the information to Tim, correct?
Good,
So-
yes,
Can we just go over, just so Tina can get it clear on the minutes?
Sure.
So the board is requesting an O and M plan,
Correct.
manufacturer's O and M plan.
Yep.
Based on the bedroom count probably, or the system itself.
Whatever they have.
Working examples.
Some references as far as the existing systems. Or
Successfully installed and functioning system in
A
the
reference on it.
Massachusetts general area.
and we will get an opinion from the Board of Health.
If there are any
I'll-
modifications on. the
I'll
functioning
ask
house,
Vinnie to give their
they'll have to
opinion.
sign off on it.
Well, and we need final Board of Health approval.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
I'll follow up with him to see where it is.
We need that approval before we'll.
All right, if that makes sense to us, let me ask Tina, does that make sense? Is that clear enough to you? Do you need us to clarify anything additionally about how we're moving forward with this particular hearing motion?
You get that, Tina?
Tina, you copying it? Hello?
Yep, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay, is what we've just asked Adam to provide for us and the motion we're about to make pretty clear to you? Or do we need to tweak it or define it better for you to make a note of?
Nope, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm waiting for a motion.
So I move that we continue to the evening of the 23rd
And I'm gonna suggest we put it right at the front of the meeting.
at at 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. And that we have the order prepared in anticipation of signing at that time.
Conditional on our.
Conditional on the
Already mentioned.
on the already aforementioned
Conditions. So,
So-
second. So we have a second from Ariane, thank you, and I think he was right saying the last, I'll pay him first. And any other discussion?
So we want to ask the applicant if he's okay with the continuance.
Oh, yes, Adam, I thank you. Are you okay with that continuing till the next meeting, knowing that you wouldn't get us to it anyway? Okay.
yes.
We are wanting to move this forward for you, but if we can get that information, that'd be great.
Yep.
And so, no other discussion?
I've got just one question.
Sure, no,
We've got details on an erosion control fence with a straw wattle, and we have a detail with a Filtrix silt sock. I don't see the fence used anywhere on the plan. Is it just a silt sock?
you hear that, Adam, okay? The question is silt sock versus wattle straw and fence. Are we using both on site or just one?
Same thing with around the stalk.
I think we generally provide those as an option, on the erosion control plans, just for anything that could come up if you needed to use one of
Okay,
the other.
I think we would like to define something. We usually don't leave it up in the air with two options. We just want to make sure the applicant knows and their reps and the contractor and so forth, what we're looking for. So what is the board's preference on this? It's fairly flat site. Are they good with one? With
I can just, yeah, I mean, the erosion control can go.
So this would be from the property line
Sorry,
over
the
to the
straw
front of the
wattle.
property line over to the front of the building as well as around the stock material pile.
Sorry,
This erosion protection, whether it's this bales and straw wattle and erosion control fence or the silt sock, is going to be around both the property line over to the house, the front of the house, to keep anything from going downhill, and also around the
The temporary stuff.
temporary storage. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so when
So silt coming out of the storage would have to breach 2 levels of erosion mitigation.
potentially, yes, one around the storage area, one around the, so if we get another storm like we did yesterday.
What would be the preference of the board for a type of?
I think wattles would be fine in this. It's pretty flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere?
Okay, so Adam, we're gonna require that you, and put in the order of conditions that you have erosion control fence with straw wattles, both on the property lines over to the front of the building. To prevent site erosion as well as around the temporary storage area. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So you take the other one off and, okay, any other questions? Thank you, Noel. No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, I look forward to getting that information. Send it right to
Thank
Tim
you.
if you would, please.
Thank you.
I will.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks, night.
Night.
Night. Okay, I had started to struck the map briefly when I came in the room and got right there by the door. I wanted to bring this up to the commission. It was mentioned to me by someone in town here that it'd be nice to have, not nice, it's important to have peer review funds reviewed regularly. I know Ann used to do it, working with probably Amy, because planning board was involved with the BSC peer review funds. But each project has its own peer review fund, that's my understanding. I had mentioned to Tim that I think before we proceed with any site walks or future investigations, or even maybe some of these meetings with, although we probably enough for at least one more meeting without a question with Matt and them, if that's what happens in the next couple weeks, that we get a report on where we are. Matt can do it from his end, or we can do it from our end, or a combination, but actually it'd probably be good to double check, make sure what you think you have in the funds is what we think you have. And we make sure that those funds are, because
Well, if they don't have a fund, they build a fund.
they build one. Okay, well.
We have a budget,
Right.
you have a fund.
Right, correct. So that
They send us invoices.
what I want to know is what the funding level left in our budget for this project is for 217 Hartford Ave. In addition, we are going to need, just as a reminder, Zero Railroad Street. That project, which they tweaked and now the road is going over, so we heard a presentation about that. That's going to potentially need some site review for wetlands, that from BSC's point that we did not budget for, not budgeted originally. Ann had mentioned this, or Amy had mentioned this to me too. Planning board office that money was put aside for planning board review for BSC, but not for the wetlands, because we didn't think at that time it was going to be.
Matt and I had this conversation today.
Yeah.
Regarding this net. You're gonna get together some numbers and we're gonna get you the final design on that. Because we had talked about it at the last meeting, the board didn't mention review, but you do want to review, I'm assuming, so we do have to look at that.
Right.
So we can look at the account and, see what's in there. I think he needs to, replenish. That's what Amy's on their end too.
Yeah, so what we had talked about was doing that, because it's not a full-fledged site review, it's just that crossing.
It's just an
So
alteration.
just kind of do that under Dom's contract on your behalf. So,
On your team, yes, for the board.
yeah, our Dom, yeah.
Option.
So one thing that complicates our relationship generally is that we've tended to lump planning board and conservation under one contract. And so that, if wetlands goes a little bit long like this, the warehouse has completely gone off the rails from the standpoint of how we estimate it. I've taken, probably a lot of funds out of Dom's pocket for engineering review, and so it gets a little sloppy on our end for that, and I think we can clear that up going forward, not do that. But
Keep it separate.
yeah,
I think that's administratively, that's one of the questions I asked about, or
It
just
would
thinking
be
about.
easier for everybody.
Right, so Hannah is gonna assume some of that responsibility, I assume, and going forward. Is there a way for at least myself on commission, as well as if potentially other members want to review the status? Do we have anywhere, I don't know if that, but you know that, or Jim, is there somewhere where we can go to, again, it's confidential information, probably not generally shared with the public, or maybe it is just in a file somewhere, but see, project X on this location has peer review funds level this amount, or this much is approved, this much was paid out, so we know what balances basically remain in these accounts for this. I'm sure that they're closed out at the end of a project because the applicant wants their money back, that's paid for this, and then if there's any money left. And if we're in the hole, or potentially could be in the hole, like we would be with Zero Railroad, because there's no money in there for this, that we get it replenished.
So the short answer to that is no, because that would require you to get into AUC and you're not gonna be able to have those credentials. But the good part is, look, the administrator can keep track of that, where it's being deposited, and create a Excel sheet that can show you per project what's been drawn on, what's been billed, what's been drawn, what they've deposited, and what's been drawn out of that thing. We can do that. That's how planning.
I need to go into that. I don't have access to enough files.
That's what spreadsheets are built
Yeah,
for.
that's right. Does this make sense?
Like, they'll probably need to see the initial, like,
funds from when they were.
Yes.
Will the board have access? Yeah, to the Excel sheets, yeah,
The
sure.
administrator.
Yeah, the administrator does.
Because it's a town program.
That's
I think.
Mike, what is the worry?
Well, not the worry, it's that for 40 years, Ann and or Cliff have been taking care of that, and it's been taken care of fine. I mean, I know from conversations, signing bills and so forth, with Ann, chatting about various things that she'll mention funds and so forth, so I know she kept track, but Tim's not gonna be in there.
It's a good point. You know, what I think you could do too is, maybe monthly, you could have a monthly, report from the administrator. Can you
Well,
give us our, see how, where we stand with?
We certainly don't want to commission Matt to a task without having the money available to effect.
And right now, the
Right.
checks are missing somewhat, and not literally checks, all checks in the mail, really, trust me. The checks and balances are a little bit missing right now, and Hannah, I assume, will step in and be oriented by Tim and whoever else in town hall needs to do that. And the administrative assistant person, yet unnamed, that's gonna start soon, may have some clerical parts of that too, but I think it's just good practice for the commission to have some senses. I don't wanna go even and entertain a site walk where we ask Matt to come along, whether it's 2217 or some other location,
And he's in the hole.
and get their expertise and not have money in the account.
Well, if I may, part of the problem too, is Wall Street Development. Down on Prospect Street.
That's
Part of,
on the agenda.
part of that issue at the end was the fact that they refused to fund any peer review.
For some additional things we want to do.
So our peer review had to stop, therefore we had to stop. So that's part of it too. We need to keep an eye on that.
And the accounting would give us the answer
Yes,
if it's available during the meeting when we're scheduling Matt to go.
Or just like Tim said, if we know on a monthly basis, we're not gonna go out on a site visit, or Matt's not gonna commit to a major.
Matt is also gonna be able to provide, you know, at the start of a project, he's gonna be able to provide a number.
Yeah.
You know, and the number,
Anybody out there?
Going into town clerk.
Matt's gonna be able to provide a number based on the design that's submitted initially. And I think what the commission can do at that point is say, look, as applicant, you're gonna need to, from the estimate from our peer review, you're gonna have to deposit X amount before, you know.
Right, and logistically, Ann would take care of that. You're anticipating the Hannah will go.
Yeah, so when projects come in, that's what she did. She would get with BSC and figure out the amount, and then, you know, they would be required to provide a check. It would be deposited, and then they would start.
but as these projects go on, frequently there are more funds that are required as the review goes on. So we may,
Depending on- right.
we potentially go back to the applicant and say,
And
Look,
Wall
this
Street
thing is-
said no.
Which is one of the reasons why they're on the agenda
which is
here.
one of the reasons. why
So
we're
just so
talking about
Noel and
the meeting.
Marianne can, I know Steve didn't know this, but you remember as we sat in meetings that very rarely, if almost ever, has Ann or Cliff brought up, oh, we need to check on the peer review balance for something, because they knew it, because they kept on top of it. That was part of the job. They would let us know occasionally if the applicant needed to add more money, like happened with us when we're starting the process.
They wouldn't mention that a lot because they do that.
Well, that's what I mean, that's what I'm just saying.
And-
Since that's not there, that's.
And did it internally.
I think there's,
Just for transparency
Yeah,
and
but,
our own.
but you know what? Once a month. You can be provided with an Excel sheet just to show where the projects are. I mean,
That's a good
Excellent,
idea.
oh, excellent idea.
that's how it's being taken care of anyway, so it doesn't matter.
out of sight, out of mind, operational things that Ann and Cliff manage that we should perhaps head off like this.
That's a good question, and while Tim knows perhaps some
Probably
of it,
trip
Well,
over.
I think, again,
It's
you know,
more than seeing it with trip
it's
over.
gonna evolve, you know, things are gonna change and.
we'll discuss some of that. I will say to the board that I've had an email conversation briefly, or phone conversation briefly with Ann, she's on vacation now, I think, and asked her and Cliff if it's a good idea with the board, and then I'll bring it to the board first. And if they were okay with it, whether we could have, and it would have to be an open meeting. And informational sort of transitional, exactly the kind of focus that you're just talking about. What issues and items do we not know about that you took care of all these years that we don't want to wait and trip over? Just those points.
What they should have done before they left.
Well, that's, okay, well, that's not going down that road.
Yeah, no, I'm going down that
Okay,
road.
well-
No, I'm going down there. That they should have done before they left.
Yeah, well,
But now we'll be done with probably including Hannah and everything.
the benefit would be to Hannah, number one, as
Yeah.
the paper.
So Ann left instruction, several page instruction on the process, and that's what Hannah's gonna follow, and that was Ann's process.
Oh, so that does exist.
Oh, yeah, yeah, she left notes, and that's for the next, you know, administrator.
It's just that Mike thinks of everything. And
Yeah, I think we need to move forward with what, you know.
Oh, I'm definitely, think we have to move forward both of this.
And I think, you know, we need to move forward with what the board wants,
Right.
how you guys want to handle it.
Absolutely,
You
I
know,
think it's gonna be-
right, so,
Tim, is there any
Yeah.
chance we could have a copy of that task list
yeah,
just
it's
for our
it's
own
just a flow.
education?
Sure, it's just a flow. Pretty much.
Beth, I neglected to get off the website. You did say there was posted on the website, the job description for Hannah that you were advertising out
Yes,
there.
but it's down now,
I understand.
but
that.
I can get that to you.
If you
definitely.
wouldn't mind, I appreciate it. I just like to know, so I'm not asking her to do something that's on, she'd say, I was never asked to do this, I wasn't there. And
It's
not
just
that I
that
would,
in that position, there's very little that you,
don't get out. to do. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like an aid of ours. I mean, whatever we're asked to do in a professional position, that we do it. The one thing to piggyback on what Tim was saying, we do as department heads, we get monthly, pretty much monthly reports on the status of our budgets and where we sit. So that's definitely something that can be done, and Hannah and or the administrative assistant should be doing that anyways for you. That's something that you should have definitely as a board. So, you know, as Tim said, now's the time to tailor what you want to see as information.
What you guys want to think.
right,
Yeah.
well, the other, what, on that.
There are a lot of things we didn't
Right,
know,
on that front and on the financial front, one of
and that
the-
was fine with us.
yeah, right.
But we're being called, not me, but you guys are being called about via summons to answer for some of this.
Yeah, and then we'll get you put on it, don't worry, I'll tell them. Brian Norton is no longer on, and put Steve on instead. Okay, so on similar note, just to wrap that up, permits and fees, processing the procedures and staff responsibilities. We have never taken that on. I'm not looking to do so, but I'm just mentioning that I'm pretty sure will be part of payment purview. Because as I had pointed out to me, mentioned to me, and I kind of knew this anyway, part of the income for the Concom's budget is fees that we regularly require that people pay, and that's been again done by the previous administrator and made sure that all fees that are required to be paid at the right amounts and the posting, whether it's for a public notice, the newspapers, make sure the ad place, whatever.
Well, that's another thing, the advertising fees, we don't hear, we don't get the money for the advertising.
Just as a recommendation, some of the boards, what they do is it's presented at the meetings, a list of the receipts, and so that you know exactly what has come in, because the turnover is done to the offices. And you can always set that up again. It's up to you to decide what you
Right,
want.
I'm asking
If you want to get, yeah, if you want to get into the fees and stuff like that, so when an NOI comes in, okay, there's 3 checks. Okay, so there's gonna be an advertising check, there's gonna be the state fee and the local fee. So those are all taken for that, whatever NOI it is, whatever the address is, and it's deposited under that address. And there's a turnover, that's how it works in Chester. There's a turnover to the collector's office, and then it's kept track of. So, it's all it's gonna be probably on a spreadsheet, so.
So my question to the board is, what level of information do you want to get? We can put this off and decide this at another time. It's just bringing it up now because it was brought up to me and I made some notes of things that we ought to be aware of and to think about a little bit. And we can, there's no rush to get this information. It's out there. It's going to be there. People are working on it. It's going to be better worked on, not better, but more currently worked on.
Yeah, I'm more in favor. I think getting a monthly update at this point of where we are with peer review fees and sort of that sort of thing, keep us in the loop on that. The nitty gritty about, the nitty gritty about did they, how much did they pay for advertising fees for, I really couldn't care.
Would not be interested in things that I wouldn't be ever held accountable for answering for.
It's kind of the administrator's job.
Yeah. And I do know that on occasion, there have been 1 or 2 occasions over the last 20 whatever years where we didn't hold a hearing because they hadn't given us the check of the advertising.
There you go.
It makes sense to like.
So, but that was the administrative function.
That's right.
That came at the
I think,
beginning of the meeting.
You know what, down the road, if whatever,
Yeah, to teach Hannah. Yeah, I think that's part of what Tim's
So I would
doing. It's
amend-
probably in Ann's notes.
Accountability to operation process as well, which is what Neil just said.
Yeah, okay.
moving,
No.
going down the road, she's gonna be able to answer a lot of questions that you have, once she gets her feet wet and
So
stuff.
we can tweak things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Curving,
At any-
curving still.
At any time, you know, but
It looked
let's
like-
let her get going and get some
She'll have
training.
one meeting.
You'll give her one meeting, okay, Dennis got it. Okay, give the open meeting.
Right into the deep end, sorry.
Jeez, so Beth, you had asked back on the 19th, I think, or maybe the 26th meeting. About upcoming projects. You had some that you knew were sort of in the works with us. I went through some minutes for the last 4 or 5 meetings that Tina had done up and made notes of things. Basically location, type of project and the filing type as best I had, and I came up with about 12 or 15. I just added tonight, the New England Country Club, which I saw in the minutes had been, the ORAD had been denied an extension of like the meeting in, one of the last meeting in June, I think. Because they hadn't done anything for so long, and we decided, well, they can come back to us for file. So that will probably come up again down the road, but it includes things like 217, 206 Mechanic Street, which although it's been approved, that warehouse one corner of Maple and 140, it's got to be checked periodically during the construction, made sure things are good, and you don't have erosion. That 4 inches the last we got yesterday. Anyway, would you like a copy of that?
Yeah, you can give it to Tim and he and I work together on them, so,
The town directory, we need to delete Brian and add Steve.
yes.
And I noticed on the minutes that we just had given to us by Tina for, what was the right date on? I think it was July 26th. It might have been a night.
Yeah, it was July.
Oh, no, July 26th, when it says meeting location at the top via Zoom. So we are gonna, and then Governor Healy's acting, the whole thing is on there every time. We did agree that at the last meeting that we're going to try to make sure that on all the websites and things like this, even minutes, if we start listing that it's not just available via Zoom, but via Zoom and in person, is that how the planning board, for example?
Yes.
Via Zoom.
Or in person with a Zoom option.
Yeah, whichever way they phrase
Yeah.
it, that we now start doing that on minutes as well as noting on the agendas for the meeting that are posted on the website. Because we do want to be consistent. We did have somebody, for those of you, Aaron, I don't think you were here, but we had a lady, a couple of people come into the room for Blackstone Street, the multi-family, but then we ended up saying that they're continued. And we told them when, so most of the people were okay with that line, but one lady's kind of, she was representing other people, and she didn't know that we have the Zoom up. She didn't know we have the Zoom option, or
No, she didn't know that we were in person.
Maybe in person, but had been told last minute she did come down. So we want to make sure people know that both ways are.
But they didn't know about the activity, right?
Right, they didn't know about the issue.
That
So they
was
got,
the
they
real
got some
thing. That was the
information.
big thing.
Yeah. Okay, I'll jump back to the agenda and I'll finish up at the end with the scheduling, things how I want to do this. So we have some minutes that were put off until this meeting for June 14th and June 28th. I have looked them over. I do have a couple of fairly minor things, questions. But I'll ask the other board members first if you have anything for those for Tina to make note of, or you can pass along. Sorry, Tina, I didn't get them to you before the meeting, but ran into a couple issues. I can also forward these to you, where I just highlight the draft minutes that you sent to us, so that if I say something now, you don't have to worry about missing it. That makes sense, but does anybody?
Which one of these?
So we're looking about at the two that were on the agenda for tonight to review and approve, the 14th of June and the 28th of June.
They both have revisions.
I had some notes for the.
Mike always says.
No, matter of fact,
Mike always.
just read the 26th one tonight, and I didn't have a single thing to say about it, except that was the night meeting.
Good
was
thing I'm
20
sitting down.
Glad this is recorded.
Oh, shucks, dang it, holy.
I do have one problem with those.
Okay, well, we didn't get them formally on the agenda because they just.
I don't know if that was a printing issue. It says page 4 or 5, and there's no page 5 or 5. So I don't know if that was a typo or it just didn't come out of copy.
Mike, can I interrupt?
Yes, go ahead.
We have a member of the public who
Yes,
has been
would you-
patiently
excuse me,
waiting to ask a
I've got,
question.
Ariane's mentioned too, are you here for something in particular?
Well, I wanted to see how I can get on the agenda for another meeting. I left a message, I think it was last week or something, to talk about a shooting range that's on my street. To talk to you guys about how it's being regulated for lead removal and for wetlands and anything that
On Summer Street, where is?
Grove Street.
Oh, Grape. Okay.
So they have a private shooting range that is like a public shooting range, and it is a lawful shooting range according to the town, because it is 500 feet from my home. It's actually 600 and something feet. And I'm working on noise, which Tim and I have been actively working on. But I do feel that this range is, nobody's looking at it. What are they doing with the lead?
So, do we have room on that 24th?
So that's my,
The later board.
Yeah, but probably not till
yeah,
9.
So, let me ask a question. I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
sure. My name is Suzanne Walton. I'm at 36 Grove Street right next to them.
So have you gotten anything in writing about some of your concerns, the site, any details, information?
I have been working on this for 5 years.
I'm sure you've got stuff. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if Tim has gotten anything.
Tim has gotten he's gotten
Great. So,
books of it, yeah.
So let's try to fit her in on the 23rd.
Yeah.
If that.
so this will be considered, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, other members or Tim, an information, new
Information.
business, but an informational interview. We're not doing a hearing, and just so
That'd
we're
be
all clear.
great.
So you bring us to speed of concerns as to you have environmental concern that may be relevant to our purview. Will help after listening to that, decide whether
Okay.
there's something that we do have purview on. We may want to consult on it and get some recommendations from other town officials or something.
Sure.
If there's something that's relevant that we feel we need to step in or get active on, I think at that
Okay.
time we can give you some sense of that.
What time is that meeting, the
So,
23rd?
we do have,
9.
well, let's see, so. You want to hear till 11? Okay, I didn't say that. On the,
I think we made Hartford Hartford have.
You made
8:30.
one at 7.
yeah,
We already have Bernier at 7.
8:30 is Hartford Ave.
Right, so
Yeah.
9 would be the earliest we could go.
It's probably gonna be after.
well, we can tell them they only have half an hour. I have no problem with telling you.
So
If
9
we schedule
PM.
something else at 9, they're done.
What's that?
That's how we roll,
All right, so Grove Street.
informational.
Yeah.
And is that at 9 PM, did you say?
Yes, what, so
Huh?
we'll have to make a motion because we're putting something on the agenda, so,
Okay,
we'll,
Otherwise, it would be the next following meeting 2 weeks later if you wanted.
that's
to-
fine. Sooner is better.
so
for
I
me.
don't think we, Tim, correct me, I don't think we use her address as the location, but the shooting range, does it have a street address, do you know?
It does. It's 40 Grove
40
Street.
Grove Street, okay,
Yeah.
so. I guess we're gonna have an informational hearing, or make a motion for an informational hearing on 40 Grove Street shooting range, environmental impact. And. At 9 PM on the 23rd.
That'd be great.
Is there any chance we could ask for just a written summary of history?
That's why I asked if Tim had information, so I assume he will send that to us.
So we
Some-
have,
something to read.
we have a lot of, complaint forms.
Well, I have dozens of complaint forms for noise, not
I think
for,
what we would like and find helpful is, because maybe
Sure.
regulatory is, do you have any maps, or can you work with Tim in the next 2 weeks?
I
guess?
can provide, I can.
Yeah.
So if you have some idea where the property is, where the nearest wetlands are and so forth that you're concerned about, and
I can print them.
that'd be great, Tim. I appreciate that. And does lead remediation, like, is that a COMCON thing? Like, how is he, like,
No.
do we require
But I-
shooting ranges to have that? I think he's the only private public shooting range in the town.
If
Then
he's
it-
outside of the 100-foot buffer zone,
Police
to a wetland, we don't have any jurisdiction over it at
Okay.
all.
And even regulations on how he's remediating his lead.
That would probably be more of a board of health issue.
Mass-
Ask Tim about that, but he said there's
Yeah,
nothing.
So there's a defining line here. She says public and private.
Mm.
This is a gentleman's home,
Mm.
so I can't call it public.
But he treats it as a public.
I
shooting
mean,
range.
what he does, I can't, it's not a commercial operation.
So it's not,
We've run.
He's had trainings there but
He
we
invites
give the
people
money.
there. I mean, we've vetted this through town council and this has been a long time, you know, so look, it's really comes down to his right to do what he's doing privately. Now, if he was if he was trying to do a public if he had a sign, put up a sign on the weekend and said, hey,
Well,
come.
he was trying to
for-
run a business
you
at his
know,
barn.
Yeah,
too,
and
so-
we stopped that, but it's a fine line here. So, I mean, you say, anything within 100 feet is your jurisdiction, and you're right.
Right.
Now,
If there are impacts
That's
within the
right.
100-foot buffer
That's right.
zone or the riparian zone, then we. have
so
jurisdiction.
and did,
Yes, Charles River,
Sure.
yes.
any river.
About streams. This is.
Depends,
the streams
depends
that
on kind of
come up.
stream and how it's
Okay,
defined. and
all right.
So Ann did get involved on this, on the 23rd, we can talk about that.
That would be great, yeah.
We'll at least start the process, get some
Perfect.
information, Tim will give us some information that we can look at.
I'll bring as much information as I can.
Okay,
I'll bring a diagram of the plot plan, show them where they're doing it. You can come up and quantify that.
yeah, absolutely. I would appreciate that.
All right.
All right, will you call me back tomorrow?
Yeah.
I
Well,
left you a
put it in
message
the
today,
history.
and I emailed
Okay,
you
today?
a month ago. Yeah,
I learned a lot in the last 30
You
seconds.
you come see me a lot.
I do. Yeah, I know.
So, what was your message today?
Call me back about the town council.
Oh,
Could
yes,
please,
so,
because I had emailed them.
yes, no, so to give you an update on that, I did reach out to town council.
I
and-
reached out to town council
Yeah,
too.
it's the continuous noise. That's the sticking point of it. As
But
far
I
as the
guess I'm
noise
trying to
goes.
find an explanation on that, because nowhere in any of the state or town law does it ever mention a continuous.
That's our bylaw.
Where's
in
the
our-
bylaw?
Our bylaw defines that.
As continuous
That's right.
noise. But you or town council, no one has heard this, when you have 6 people shooting
Mhm.
for 6 hours straight continuously, that's not continuous?
Tim, this is being
Yeah,
recorded. for
let's,
conservation.
I don't
There's
think we
still a
can,
lot of our.
Yeah.
there's
So
also a
I
lot
think
of-
that-
So why don't you come in on the 23rd
Yeah,
and
and if you could
You're
call
on the
tomorrow
agenda.
regarding that, so
You're on
you
the
can
agenda.
explain that to me for the other issue.
if you'd like to come up and see me tomorrow, come up and see me. If you can- if you can.
I just enjoyed that you call me back.
I don't think we need a motion. We don't need. a
I
motion.
emailed you a month ago too.
We ended it all the time.
Okay.
Okay, that would be great, because I'm just trying to get clarification on that.
Because it's not a public,
Which
it's not a public hearing, so we don't.
I never saw that word in our files. Thank you, everyone.
okay, thank you.
All right,
Have a nice-
good night.
nice night.
Thank you.
Could you send that in whatever information, sketch and or some historical stuff out before? Okay,
This is already.
all right, no, just. We passed board members requested before the meeting. It sounded like we might just be bringing as you to the meeting.
Mhm.
If that's the first time we see it, it'd be less helpful than just having something to look at before.
But again, with anything like this, we have a very narrow scope on what we are concerned or not concerned.
Let's move on.
All right, yeah,
Yeah. I just want to make it
I
clear
want to be
that we have
respectful to
a
both. Matt,
very clearly
who has
defined scope.
been waiting and patient as well as Matt. Matt, since you probably can get out of here quick. If I can just confirm whether there's anything that Matt needs to be aware of, Beth, and you, Tim, let me ask you first. In your opinion versus the appeal to denial of conditions. Matt, were you involved in Prospect
Are we-
Street? Do we?
So,
Hang on,
so.
If we're gonna discuss pending litigation, should we be in executive session? Right.
Well, okay, I just want to ask Matt if he needs to be here. And if he doesn't, we'll let him go because he's hanging. And
I think we're okay with that, Yep, we don't have anything else.
meaning you're done.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm okay with him all the time, not just. when
I
he
mean,
leaves.
you don't want to keep him here. I don't
No,
think- yeah.
I was just asking if he had been on any of the sidewalks. I don't remember. We've been dealing with that
Oh, yeah.
particular site for.
And I helped draft the denial.
Okay, so I'm going to say to the board that having seen the information that was in that letter, legal letter, without going into it yet, because we'll do that in executive session. I think that we're going to need to have some assistance in, depending on how Beth says, we need to respond, whether, we need to have experts and stuff like this. I'm not an expert enough to respond properly. Having said all that, why don't we go ahead and go into executive session and let Matt know when and if we'll need you to come, because I don't know what Beth's gonna suggest in town council and so forth.
So, do you want to ask Matt to stay for, I can give you an explanation on, what's going on?
Would you rather hear it
That's
now
why
or
it's on
later?
there.
You wanna hear it now? You wanna stay or you wanna go? It's up to you.
It'll be quick.
And
Personally,
I can stay if you.
I think if he was involved, he should.
No, we're not gonna discuss the suit or anything. I just want to inform you of what's happened. That's it. Okay, so Wall Street has,
Should we be in?
no,
No.
we're not gonna discuss any
Oh.
particulars.
Okay.
I just want to let you know that we did receive, a notice, we're defendant in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
For because of the denial of the prospect and Lake Street, property. We have been served, everybody's been served. Town council, just issued a letter saying, they need all the certain documents that we're providing. We have to provide them by a certain time, and they're taking it from there. So, that's about as much as.
We have to provide them at a certain time.
Yes.
We have a
We're
certain amount of time for discovery.
Brian said, I saw an 8/21 date, but the question is, you said two things that sound like the opposite. One is that the town council has asked them, I assume the plaintiff, to provide certain amount of documents, and then you said we have to provide that by.
We're the defendant.
Right.
And we are providing all the documentation that they requested
By the deadline.
by the
Okay,
deadline.
so we haven't asked them for additional information. I thought you
No,
were saying town
right
council
at this
has
point,
asked
we're answering their request.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have 20 days for that.
Correct.
20 days, which is gonna be a week from today. By my counts, because the letter is dated 25th of July, or signed. no,
27th, yeah, 27th.
No. Okay, so my question is twofold. One is, in the very rare times that the Concom has been sued and or gone to court, have commission members needed to go, required to go? Are the named litigants required to go, or does town council handle everything?
It depends on where it goes, I think, before they, if they settle or not. I guess it could go, different cases go to, interrogatories but, I don't know what this particular one, I don't
Okay.
know.
Because,
They can vary, just so you know, I mean, it depends on, it's been said which direction they go. Usually council takes care of everything. I know in the cases that I've been involved in, even if I was required to go, I don't say anything, council is there, they may have one or two questions, very rare, but that's why we hire the council.
right, well, no, I'm not.
They take care of everything.
So you may be called in, if there's depositions, I've been called in before on them, so it could happen.
Okay, no, so one of my questions is, Wall Street Corporation versus Bellingham Conservation Commission and its members, Cliff Matthews, Neil Stanley, Brian Norton, Mike Ryan, Harry, and Lauren, Noah Elias. So one member, what's that? Your name, you mentioned, wow. Unfortunately, so is Cliff and Brian. So does it matter that Steve is not, and he's a current member, and that two people who aren't current members are not, or are listed on here? Does that not negate it, but affect the way this is going to proceed?
No, whoever was involved in,
Those are the people that signed it or not.
They can send something to Anne at her home address and be like, you have.
Guys,
She was,
well, Ann's not listed,
When-
but Cliff, yeah. okay.
I would assume this does not involve me at all.
no, right now.
Well, that's part of also what I'm concerned about, is that if you need to
I was
be,
looking forward to it.
oh,
if you needed to be, you would just say.
You could go.
Arian. You know, Noel,
it's an open court, you can go.
Neil,
So are those copies available for us to look at?
yes, these are yours.
Great.
I'm gonna distribute.
Okay. Souvenir.
Nice.
Okay, and so we should just, Beth, in your opinion, we should, and Tim, in your opinion, we should just be waiting to hear what council wants.
Yeah, this will vet out. Council is gonna collect the information that they requested.
Because some of the points they were covering in that, what I read through the 40, whatever pages, 20 pages, whatever it was. It was fairly technical stuff, which is why I'm looking at Matt, because if he's one side is familiar with it and help write the denial, I'm counting on him to step in where technical questions which would refute the plaintiff.
Are we
Would
getting,
be-
I mean, are we starting to discuss?
I'm not discussing the case, I just want to know whether we need to have Matt come in, and if so, what level and how we're going to communicate that to him, and make sure that he was involved in it, so that if he wasn't involved at all, he knows.
He wasn't named.
He wasn't
Well,
there.
but the claim says we fail to provide and utilize science,
Right, right. Which
which would involve Matt.
and if we get into the technicalities of what we asked them for information that they refused to provide, that peer funds. are not-
Everything is determined by council, whoever they call.
Yeah.
So
Alright.
that's the best way to look at it.
Yeah,
They tell us.
So you gotta have some.
They may just want to talk
Have a
about
heads up, and you said you were involved in it before, so that's enough for now, and
it.
that's,
He was chair.
that's good. Okay. All right, anybody have anything else from that before we go? Because I don't think you need to care about the Eversource or anything notice of approval for future site stuff, and No certificate of compliance. Thank you, Matt. Keep us posted on how it goes with your one trial sit down workshop, and maybe you'll see some of us either somewhere in person, depending on the timing of it.
No designing.
Yeah, I think he talks too much.
Yeah.
Matt, are you gonna provide me with some fees, or do you wanna talk tomorrow?
I'm in the field all day tomorrow,
Okay.
but Friday,
Perfect, Friday morning?
let's talk. And we'll figure out what you need from me and we'll put something
That'd be
together.
great.
Yeah, and I've sent a message to Dom, see if I can sneak under for the SNP.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be good for the applicant as well. I mean, they are being reviewed for the way they treat the road and the pipe that's going under the road. So he can do the review at that point for the impacts.
Just as long as he's got some.
That's basically what you alluded to.
Well, and there was something a little about where along the cart
You're getting
path,
his numbers now.
they're
Restoring.
they were doing some restoration area along the cart path, and I think that while Cliff and Ann and others that walked the site at the time said in general that made sense. If there's anything that they've done in the final version of what they're sending and we're about to approve potentially, I want to make sure that somebody with eyes on it that could say, yeah, this does make sense overall. There's nothing else that jumps out. We should talk about this. It needs another sidewalk, whatever. And that's where I would look to.
No, I think it's fairly simple. I think we would be good to get a professional set of eyes.
So if you can ask them to look at the restoration and the new pipe that's going under the road that they had mentioned at the last meeting.
Yeah, Dominic can do
We
it.
want to make sure it's sized right and all that, you know.
Somebody thought one big pipe instead of two little ones made sense.
And we all agreed.
And even the applicant said, sure.
I think he was gonna change it too.
But then again, we're not engineers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Apparently that with Standard Oil, there's like a contract between Standard Oil and Penn Central. Who I think bought out New York, New Hampshire, New Haven, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, there's essentially the oil pipelines.
Yeah, town truck.
Good.
That's nice.
Interesting.
Gotta move the tracks. Is that how they did it? They just move the tracks?
No, they had it right away,
Yeah, no.
and it was nice and flat.
Oh, yeah.
So,
They
I
did
mean,
the-
What a
they
perfect.
did their level best to stick those pipes in anywhere they could.
A little sidebar, I have hanging on my wall in my office. All of the railroads in New England in 17 something. And it is amazing.
When you're everywhere.
They're all small
wouldn't have been
railroads.
17 something,
18 something.
18
Like-
something.
Tim Railroad Company.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that? From a map company?
I think it was Library of Congress.
There used to be little railroads
Okay.
everywhere.
I just printed one on all the Native American battles.
So,
Beth, are you here for anything else that we're holding up for? Because I don't, you're welcome to stay. I just want to make sure if you're like, geez. when are
we
they
deal
gonna
with that
ask
a
me
lot
about
with railways. Who has,
We're gonna-
who has?
No, I'm just here.
Who has the
I was
rights?
shocked with how many there
So,
are.
yeah,
Yeah.
go back and do the outside tracks.
We're getting,
Small privately owned railroads.
I'll be right back.
So how did, so moving forward to the certificate of compliances, how did you do that in the past? So I went out and looked at, the ones that are on the agenda that are okay to approve. Did she distribute them to you guys to
We
sign?
would meet here generally on Saturday morning,
Really?
Mike and I, or Neil and I, and
Or I could come over on weekday because if I happen to.
Well, I have them here. I have them.
generally Friday nights and Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we haven't been in person in a meeting, so
Okay.
it never happened in a
Okay,
meeting lately.
that's
but
fine. Normally you would do it at a meeting.
We could do it, I mean, we years ago did do it in a meeting, so if you want to pass those around.
Okay,
fine.
so do you
But-
want to make a blanket motion to approve these and then
Yeah,
just sign them? And
I
can
think
spread them out on
we
the table?
definitely have to approve them, since they were in some cases being reviewed by you since the last meeting.
These are the only ones I went out to. We have a lot more.
Right, I know that there were a bunch more, but let me ask this, were the Lovers Lanes ones, 7, 9, 14, 16, were they on the last agenda?
Yes.
Okay, and we had said that you were gonna go out and look
Right.
at them and check them and all the,
It's all grown. It's all grown in. Their plot plans have all been submitted.
did any of them not have a rain guard put in that should have, because that was.
Not on these, not
back
on
in
these,
June.
but so there's other ones on Celestial Circle that they're doing work on. They're not, they submitted them. And they weren't totally complete, so they're working on them out in the field.
I thought there was one at least that was completely missing. They haven't put it in.
That could be one on Celestial, having them review them.
Not like partial, it's not even, okay.
Ones that had, they came before any of the last two meetings and ended up having additional work to do.
So I think, it might have been either 14 or 16 lovers had some erosion that they fixed. But that was about it. These, they're pretty much, I don't know, they're probably on the outer edge of the buffer zone, maybe, you know, they're not sensitive areas. It's more the Celestial one that abuts the new conservation land that you guys, that they created with, there's like a, I don't want to say a bridge, but they built up the road with rock. And that's the conservation area that's fenced. They need to locate a perimeter drain on one of them. The fence rails, a couple of fence rails were down, you know, little stuff, but that's what they're working on. G&H.
30 Farm Street, I saw them in the minutes. Yes. What was that? That's not oh, here it is. Septic repair. Okay, yeah,
That's all seeded. The erosion control is all in. They haven't taken anything out.
they were putting poles along the edge of the lawn because, and so with batches and so forth that have been done. There's nothing else to check on that, okay? And farm, 80
elbow was all set too.
That was the septic that they
Yeah, that was a-
raised areas.
Yeah, it was
The north end of town, right?
south, all the way down south.
Oh, south end, sorry.
Yeah, this is a pretty flat lot. It's an older home. It still has all the erosion control up. The grass is growing and everything now.
Right down by our little brook. Okay.
And then
Peters
a
River.
minute to-
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. June 14th.
I think it goes right behind it, right?
Tonight.
Goes right behind- That Peters River that goes right behind you.
The 26th.
Their erosion control is still up and, it's all growing. It's good to go.
Okay.
We typically have, we do make sure that they do take the erosion controls out.
Yeah, I didn't want to, they
It's
asked.
not so, well, I don't so much care, I don't think we so much care about residential stuff, because they'll do that, but on these big
Oh, okay,
projects,
yeah.
they leave it out in the woods.
Yeah.
No, we want it.
Yeah, these ones here, this one actually, Elbow Street, I asked them to leave it in because
Yeah.
of the rain and it was near the river, but it was growing.
It's more on the,
Then leaving it instead of leaving it.
around, they go out in the woods, around, like
It stays there
like
forever.
like Lakeview.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure that that all comes out,
Okay.
because otherwise it's there forever.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve and sign the certificate of compliance request for 80 Ellis Street, 30 Farm Street, 7 Lover Lane, 9 Lover Lane, 14 Lover Lane, and 16 Lover Lane. On the recommendation of the acting administrator.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? Yeah, Aye. Okay, thank you. So let's sign those tonight before we leave. The Eversource Energy Notice of Approval from NVAR. I saw it, just a notification that in the future that they might want to do stuff that.
Well, they want to trim in the,
spray herbicide.
Did they have a specific date? I didn't see anything here in this
I
notice.
didn't see a
It
date.
just says that their 5-year plan is posted at sites and this letter does not, receive this letter does not indicate treatment will occur in your town from 2023 to 2027. So for the next 4 years, it might not have.
I think it's kind of like boilerplate.
It is boilerplate
Yeah.
stuff, they just.
I didn't think they were looking for anything, it's just that we've
No,
received.
this gives them 3 more to do it.
And herbicides are registered with the federal EPA and all that. Okay, so we've received those, that's under new business and. Who's NVAR? Oh, Department of Agricultural Research. Okay, they've approved. We've been brought up to speed by Tim on the appeal and Beth on the appeal. There were conditions for Wall Street, and that's the public street on this stuff project. Need to do anything, just wait on that. The minutes, going back to the June 14th and June 28th minutes that were sent to us at the last meeting by Tina and are ready for approval by people. If you have any comments, I have a couple of quick ones.
I don't believe I had a chance to review that.
I'm good.
Okay, so on,
Can we back up?
sorry,
Eversource, use of herbicides, who's responsible for notifying the town?
they are by this letter. I think this constitutes,
They just did.
Tim, this is our notification by the.
What about the
It's
residents?
pretty vague.
the time frame that they're saying, this must be a blanket thing that they do in every town.
So
As a matter of fact, I know they.
It doesn't even indicate that they'll do anything in the next 4 years.
Right.
I don't know why some just,
I'm thinking that,
they covered them if they had to sign to.
I'm thinking they would file if they,
needed to do it, and it was within. Some sort of resource area.
It doesn't make that clear. It tends to selectively apply herbicides along the power line right of ways that pass through your municipality in the future. And I suspect that they have the right to do that because it's within the right of ways.
And they have pretty clear.
Yeah,
they do.
And
pretty much. They are kind of letting us know as a first. What's that?
I think there's a exception under.
They're notifying us as they are required to do probably.
As far as the neighbors,
That's about it.
in the past, when they've treated that I've been on board and were told us that they sometimes tell us that they're actually going to do some spraying in an area, or they're going to do cuttings, like a major clearing of trees, anything along the section that's grown more than 100 feet on either side of the road, they have the right to do. And generally, we have not gone beyond thank you for the information. There's nothing we do about it, as opposed to we do get actively involved with the right of ways. Power lines, so when they're putting in replacement poles and stuff like they're working on lines where they're putting in massive things to handle the tractor trailer, not tractor trailer, the tractors and bulldozers and whatever else.
But even then, we have we have more of an advisory role.
Right.
We don't have to.
They've done pretty good. about
Yeah,
it.
they're all.
And they do, I guess, within the scope of the work, pretty good job of putting it back, bird's eye view by some of the seats in the road. And it looks like it comes back pretty quickly.
After a year or two, you'd never know that.
So from that, timber goes up, and that's a little bit.
Yeah, they do a pretty good job at rigging up the bridge.
Okay, so moving along to Tina, forever, the minutes, minutes of June 14th, second page. Halfway down, the chairman replied that the area for proposed, this is regarding the Zero Railroad Street. Location that is the Snap Trail. It says the chairman replied, the area for proposed replication was reviewed in the field and was determined that it was entirely appropriate. The commission looks forward to reviewing the methodology and protocols that will be used to establish that. And I think we just need to add replication area again at the end of that sentence, just so it's clear what that is that was referred to. That's a minor thing, but that'd be helpful. And then just for the commission's reference, initially, the commission didn't anticipate the need for enhancement, replication, crossings, et cetera. This is the very end of that hearing. When the scope for peer review was developed, we only had an engineering scope review. This is what Matt was referring to, borrowing the money from. And we're going to need to revise that so the peer reviewer can take a look at the additional wetland impacts, area impacts, and buffer zone impacts. So I think, Tim, that's what we want to see Matt dig in with Dominic, or take from Dominic's money to look at, or have Dominic look rather at the scope. Since he can handle it. And the administrator will interact with town peer reviewer to develop revised scope. Plans will be forwarded and they can prove, and then we get more money if we need it, but if they can do it within the existing budget, that's fine. All right, page 3, almost all the way down, talking about continuation for 217 Hartford Avenue. Fourth paragraph. Brian Madden from LAC Environmental was present, said the original proposed mitigation was 1.6 with an emphasis on creating larger and more sustainable whirlpool habitat at a higher mitigation ratio. I'm not sure whether we mean more sustainable something habitat, not whirlpool. Vernal pool, you think? Vernal pool. Vernal pool. Okay, so whirlpool, the vernal pool there, is the wood.
Whirlpools suck all the frogs and stuff down. It's not good.
Where is that? It's page 3 on the June 9th, 14th minutes.
Oh.
And-
That's probably 270. Probably spell check.
No, I mean, yeah, it could, yeah, it could vernal. Yeah, so whirlpool there.
We'll blame it on Microsoft.
Whirlpool. And then page 4, again, this is still all 217 Hartford Avenue, which has the longest section of minutes I've ever seen overall. Fourth paragraph, this most of the way through the paragraph, this isn't a water resource district, and future development with the future expansion of roadways isn't advisable of the town to permit further development site, talking about the wells and so forth. I think we want to say this is a water resource district and future development with the expansion of roadways isn't advisable to the town to forbid. Correct. So isn't to is would be good there. And then the
Tina acknowledging these,
I'm gonna send her highlighted copies. I told her that initially, because I know these are like, I'm buzzing through them to try to finish up the meeting, but we'll put them on the record. I'll make sure she's got them. Thanks.
I was
Um,
gonna say, because when you're saying things, I'm trying to scroll through here and see them, but when you're saying page 3, page 4 paragraph, I'm trying to find them, so if you can just.
Remember, Tina, what I always tell people when they say I talk too fast, that you listen too slow. So just go. Don't worry about it. I will send this to you. I recognize I'm buzzing through that. Thank you. The last paragraph on that page 4, it says, we would like to do that work because it is confirmation of the stormwater design, which has a lot of data. And I think says B, we need some confirmatory work. I think it needs to say, but we need some confirmatory work.
where are you reading?
The last paragraph on page 4,
Okay.
third line up from the bottom.
Got it.
They'd like to, so I think it's a B we need, this is but we, and then the last thing I have, I believe, for. Yeah, that is on page 5 at the top, first paragraph. Administrators stated that they can do their research whenever they want, but the commission would like to submit what their observations are before having any discussions on it. This is sort of like what we were just talking about with Turner Austin. But we would like them to submit what their observations are before having any discussions on it. Just add the word them, like them to submit. So I'll again forward those on. Anybody else have anything else for the 14th minutes? Yeah, okay.
Will we be getting their findings for their own test results? How do we confirm that?
Yes, all the things that they said, oh yeah, oh yeah, that's what I think.
And they'll be reviewed by PSC.
Okay.
Yeah.
217.
For 217 Hartford, yeah. I think it doesn't hurt for us as commissioners, as you focus on a particular thing of it, because there's 5 of us here, so the more of us eyes on the better. If you make a note to yourself, if you want, oh, by the way, the test results, and ask Matt, we can say, did we review it?
I'd like to see the math.
If you want to actually see the math,
The replication.
we may not, in the past, Cliff and Ann would have reviewed that themselves and then told us things, or we might have asked a question or two, but if you want to get into that, I think you want to make sure that Tim knows / Hannah eventually on a regular basis, not just for this particular one or just for this one project. And then if you don't see something you want to ask more about, ask Matt.
Yeah, I think if you are gonna join an evening meeting too, you can be right.
It's just something I would like to
They
check.
can show you.
Yeah.
They can show
I
you how-
welcome something
They can
to
show
do
you
that
how they're
because I
figuring
don't
it too, you know?
Yep, the engineering, the math is something that's beyond me. Okay, the meeting minutes for the Wednesday, June 28th. Anybody else have any comments?
Do we want to,
I do love.
do them both together?
Yeah, we-
Okay.
Just expedite. So this is a question, not a correction on. the
So you're on
second
the 28th?
page. Yes, I'm jumped to the 28th. Page 2, this is a question, but I believe as I look at it, this is 30 Farm Street, and Tim just answered a minute ago when he said that we can sign off on the order of condition, certificate of compliance, because I had noted following up on, there were a bunch of things that we added to the permit, like clean up with yard waste and so forth. They said that it's all been done, so 30 Farm Street question is answered, and last.
So that wasn't a change.
No, I just said that was a question, not a change.
Oh, okay. All right.
Last-
Just,
Page 5 of 6. This is regarding the, again.
28.
Yeah, go on 28. The continuation for Hartford Ave. 217, 217, sorry.
Where is that?
Page 5 of
I got
6.
it.
Yeah, so the last paragraph, last full paragraph. It's always been the commission's opinion that the presence of groundwater at the surface or immediately below is a good indication of, says hydro conditions, I think, instead of hydro, we want hydric.
yes.
Okay, so that's a minor. The hydro is the one with all the heads, right?
Yes.
Well, there might be something there, that'd be cool to see sometime. Okay, and then the next
Somebody
sentence.
spice up the sidewalk.
Dodge, run for it. The letter gets into detail of the reduction characteristics to evaluate, but it certainly bears consideration. So this one, I'm not sure what was intended. Redoxification characteristics to evaluate? Redoximorphic? Is there such a word as redoxification, Tim?
No, I
Come on.
Redux, I mean.
think it would be redux and Morphic.
So,
Is the redux is the short,
right.
is the.
So we'll change that either to redox or redoxamorphic, whichever
Yeah, redux, we could just,
redox characteristics to that, not reduction. Okay. Redox, I'm sure it doesn't have a clue what redox is. so-
Exactly.
Okay.
I can
and that's
imagine what he kicked out.
all I have for those 2 minutes, meeting minutes. If anybody else has any other corrections, speak up. Okay. I will forward these along to Tina probably tomorrow morning.
I move we accept the meetings of the 14th and the 28th as amended.
Second. No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, good, unanimous. Tina, thank you for sending along on a Sunday, at least one of them, the 26th and the 19th minutes. I think we'll tackle those at the next meeting to give some people who haven't had a chance to glance at them. My initial glance, they look pretty darn good to me, but I think that there's not a rush to do that. Those are very timely, and thank you for working on a Sunday. I really think we should take Sundays and get a little rest, but that's, there. All right, we have, I believe, covered just about everything I have on my notes or on the actual agenda, except for future meeting schedule hearings. So we have amongst some of us, well, you weren't in the meeting area, I'll make sure you're up to speed and see what you're going to put. Talked about the fact over the years, all of us, except for Steve, have had the frustration of sitting here waiting for somebody who's canceled, hearing time to elapse so we can move on to the next. Cliff and Ann have made it a policy and practice, which we may want to continue or not, amend it, whatever, this is our chance to move forward as we want to honor those time blocks. Not to start another hearing until, unless all the applicants are in the room and nobody else would want to do it, then occasionally we bump it up a little bit, but you know, it wastes a lot of our time at times when people cancel, especially at the last minute. And that's going to continue. People cancel last minute, and we'll have those gaps if we continue to schedule what we have. One of the suggestions was that we do like the planning board and schedule every hearing for 7 o'clock.
You
And
can't go
then-
wrong that way.
And then if we want to take, whether it's a public notice first time that they're being heard or a continuation, we can take them whatever order we want. The downside to that is if there isn't a very full agenda, somebody like 217 may want to sit here and take as much time as they possibly can. We don't have another meeting, hearing rather, to back up against and say, oh, sorry, we're out of time, like we did tonight.
But you can
We
definitely put. a time
can
limit on
put
it.
time on it, we can make that, I've got no problem telling applicant, thank you very much, but we've heard enough and enough is enough, whether it's a half an hour, if we want to give them more, we can decide that. It's sort of be my call on that, I think is that's where the planning board probably does it. It seems to work pretty well, we could try that for a while and go back to timed hearings. Right
So-
now, we can't do it for the 23rd because we committed to times for those, so we have to honor that.
So the person who's last has to wait through the whole meeting.
That is the downside to the applicant. So we put the burden, and this is what Cliff and Ann wanted to respect for people who are taking time to come in and traveling. Now, when we're on Zoom, I don't think it matters much. People sit in their houses, applicants, us, everybody. But now people are gonna start traveling, some of them anyway, and we are too. And even though our trips are probably not as far, you got the farthest one, I think, although you live away.
Yeah, but I think, to your point on that, a lot of these, hearings, you know who they are, what you're gonna be talking about. You could say, look, this one's gonna be quick. Let's get this one out of here. Or we're filling the room for this one. Let's hear this one here. Let's let these people go. And, and so that way you're in control of, you can control how it goes. Some things may be just a septic system and it's gonna be quick,
I've seen these go like the meetings then tend to get out of hand and we're getting out of here at midnight. Which is a problem. And the other thing I'd like to avoid is again, if everybody shows up at 7, some poor bastards have to wait till 9.
And it may not be easy.
That's,
Like, first of all, I don't really think that it's in our benefit to do like 15-minute intervals like we've kind of been doing, where they get like 15 or half hour. I think we could probably cut it down to 20. And then we could also have like something that says like, please arrive 20 minutes early. So that, because we usually have like 1, maybe 2 cancellations per meeting. So then if they arrive 20 minutes early, they're expected to arrive 20 minutes early. We can continue them the next time. If we have like,
I mean, if you had 3 agenda items and you gave them 20 minutes, 20 minutes apiece, that's an hour, and then you bid whatever business you're doing. That way, you know, if you schedule everything at 7 o'clock, you can do that. If you choose to try to gauge, you know, how long is this one's gonna take and how many you're taking in, and you
Well,
schedule one at 9, you can't hear it till 9.
Right, and that's the problem that we run into is we're sitting here until 9.
It works for the planning.
I have been,
They advertise everything at 7.
yeah, I've been cautious,
And
as
then-
somebody who's on the planning board administrator, that we really have to be careful legally, Concom, if we're stating a time, and we've said this during the meetings, if somebody comes in and we've already started hearing, we'll back up, we'll film it, but you can have potentially some issues down the road, somebody could claim something down the road, and I want to avoid that with the.
Like what?
Because when you advertise it, it's at a certain time.
And we start at that time.
And somebody that wanted to put input in didn't get a chance to put input in because you either, you heard it early or, you know, it was out of order. You know, and then they can come back and say, hey, wait a minute.
We could finish up and move on to another item, and then they could walk in the room or come online in the Zoom, because the time posted that already not.
We said the hearing was at 8:30, but we heard it at 8 o'clock and they showed up at 8:30 and we were already done. They would have a reason to appeal.
As they would if we said 7 and they have kids at home and had to leave it after an hour. And we're not hearing it till 9:30.
Well, that's on,
No, that's
that's
advertised.
on that's on them,
That's not being time cooperative.
but legally that's on them.
So I think we could say like, yes, your meeting's gonna be at 7:30, but arrive 20 minutes before.
That's where I was thinking.
I'm,
Something like that.
I'm.
Give it time and please arrive 30 minutes ahead in case it gets moved up. That gives us the flexibility to move it. Now, how often does this happen?
Well, you can't move it up if it's a public hearing.
If it's a continuation.
If it's a continuation, yes.
I will say, when I did this research, and there's a couple pages there that I highlighted, whatever, for open meeting. It referenced in the mass regs, mass.gov site, that open meetings are different than open hearings. And said that these regulations for open meetings for the state, which we have to comply to, are not the same, and they fall under different but I could not yet find any indication of Google search and so forth. I don't know who I'd have to talk to, maybe our town council has some recommendation. What is an open hearing? Because we were having hearings, we're calling them hearings. It's an open meeting. Does that make it an open hearing? I don't know. What are the regulations that are different than open meeting ones? I want to be careful of that, but don't know.
How often does this problem occur?
With people canceling,
Yes.
it used to happen sometimes.
Happens all the time.
It sometimes would be 2 or 3 in a meeting. Sometimes it would just be one, and occasionally everybody would show up in the order.
You know, if once, it's one thing if the 8 o'clock cancels and you have an 8:30, you have to wait around till 8:30 to have the hearing.
And you
But
go through. your
we go through our minutes, we go
Right.
through the orders and conditions, we fill in with other
If
things.
you have a
So-
second one though that did it, and you had another half an hour block allocated to them in the same meeting, now you've got a half an hour with basically either jumping ahead on the agenda or sitting there.
And that's happened from time to time. It doesn't happen a lot.
It happens enough to be
It
annoying.
happens a lot recently.
And the other thing that I don't like about it is it's extremely disrespectful of our consultants and ourselves. And
Well-
the other staff would support us, like Tim or Hannah would be, so, but we're sitting here waiting. They canceled the last second. And often, sometimes that day, and so we had no chance to change the agenda. We can't legally change the agenda and suddenly put another hearing in because it wasn't posted 48 hours in advance. And so we are forced to just sit there, and I feel that's extremely ruthless. I don't like having everybody wait at 7, but,
Unprepared applicants.
or not always, sometimes it's the wetland scientist consultant, and sometimes it's the applicant, and sometimes it's
People continuing.
they have their own agenda and don't want to appear for some reason, or they're stuck hung up at the planning board and they can't see us because they didn't get without the, whatever the reasons are, it happens enough that I want to just bring it up, and we don't have to decide anything tonight because we are committed to the 23rd, at least we're thinking about it the next couple of weeks. Give me input. Whether it's, you know, we can try something. The other thing I want to be careful is we don't try something for a month and then change it to something like, okay, everything is 7 o'clock, because the 1 hour ahead of time, be prepared, we could bump you up to an hour or half an hour ahead of time, because an hour is not, I mean, we might be done meeting in an hour and a half. Yeah, right, if there's not much on the agenda.
What's the way you go on?
Yeah.
And
Well,
it also makes sense to do like.
I'm talking about
longer
railroad tracks.
time For like the initial meeting. And then after that, like, just kind of like, have like a set schedule where like, okay, this is an NOI, for your first meeting, you get a half hour. 45 minutes. And then for your continuation, you get 10 minutes. Like,
yeah, but some of those, like 217 Hartford Ave, I mean, you said maybe it's up to 15 minutes next time instead of half. an
They
hour.
could get an hour every time.
They could, that's such a big complicated project that you can't get any progress made, even whatever level of progress is reasonable and expectations have to be met some ways to try to make, even if the project is ultimately not successful or whatever. But, and then the first thing you said, an NOI, we give you, half an hour, something or so straightforward. It's like a septic repair and it's straightforward. Yes, it absolutely. Okay, this makes sense. We tweak the details of our conditions and ready to go. This one with 8 is not a good example because we got a different system and the guy doesn't seem to be right on top of the septic details that we'd like. But I've seen NOIs be approved and or passed, considered and passed along and done with them in 15 minutes. So trade-offs.
And we always have fill-in work. We have minutes.
No,
That's my thought.
We always have fill-in stuff, but it's when if you get 2 in the same meeting, then we're sitting around here doing this. It doesn't happen a lot. I don't know that it's a big deal.
Still not gonna one time.
Yeah,
There've been a couple that are not
Now
memorable.
11.
yeah.
But we do control with the time blocks, how long they over.
Okay, so there's a blend. We will stagger up to say 8:30, and then anything we think,
When you say stagger, what do you mean?
well, right now we're staggering times.
You mean schedule?
Yes,
Blocks. Okay, schedule blocks, yeah.
so let's do that up to no later than 8:30, and then everything after 8:30.
So we know that we're gonna be busy with commitments for applicants in the beginning. The only question I have, and you brought this up, Tim, I think last week, talking about the difference between a public hearing meeting, the first time somebody is coming to us versus the continuation.
Yeah.
We could, I guess hypothetically say, okay, I'd say we have 5 hearings, the first time they're all posted. Or we have to give legal time to posting, 7, 7:15, 7:45, 8:15, whatever, and then we say 8:30 comes up, and we still have 1 or 2 more of those, we could just say 8:30.
8:30.
All, they could be, you correct me if I'm wrong, can you have, because you're talking about doing that for everybody, saying all of them 7 o'clock, whether they're
Yeah.
a continuation or a public hearing.
That way you're not held to
Well,
pigeonholed.
so Ariane comes in at first with an NOI and we have a public hearing, advertised public hearing. And we have that at 7 PM.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a warehouse up to the property
Right.
lines.
So, but she gets a continuance. So we scheduled her at 7 o'clock for half an hour the first time.
Mhm.
The second time, it's a continuation. We can put that on at 8:30 with 3 other continuations.
And you don't have to.
Because those just have to be posted.
Right.
They don't have to be advertised.
And here's the trade-off,
They're only posted 48 hours ahead.
so at 8:30,
So we don't have, when we schedule a continuation, we don't have to pick a time.
right, what the advantage, the reason, and part of the
You're
reason.
just putting it in blocks to kind of manage your meeting.
Right,
That's all.
because at 8:30, we could have those 3
Everybody
hearings.
goes that smoothly, right?
Yeah, we don't even have, even if we were doing blocks of times, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that until the day it gets posted.
Right, right. And it's just a guide, that's just a guideline.
If you have 3 hearings
On
and
a
it's
continuation.
8:30 still remaining.
Right.
And one of them wants to go on and on and on, you're gonna have to arbitrarily say, okay, we're done with you now. It could be a 22-minute mark, it could be a 15-minute mark, it could be at the hour-and-a-half mark, if you're really not able to nail it down, or we're really into it. And then you've got the other 2 applicants who've been sitting here for that unknown period of time, which will vary from meeting to meeting and block to block too. So putting them all at 7 o'clock, same thing, right? Again, we're gonna have to decide something if we do the hour long. I don't have a strong sense, I just don't want to change it twice in a short period of time. The way we do it, because I think that'll really confuse
If we
people.
put everybody on, if we did, like you said, we schedule, we don't continue anybody with a specific time. We continue them to a specific meeting. Right? We then schedule. We schedule the initial hearings at blocks,
In the beginning.
half-hour blocks at the beginning, starting at 7.
The opening of the public.
Yes,
hearings.
whatever, what did you call it, Tim? The first hearing?
Public hearing.
The public hearings. We schedule the public hearings first. And then after that, and again, we work this out with the agenda.
But then,
And we say, okay, then so we've got 3 public hearings, so 7, 7:30 and 8. So at 8:30. We start with the continuations. And we say in the agenda that they are scheduled for 30 minutes.
You could do that. I mean, if another way people do it too, is they'll schedule, say you have 3 public hearings. And you didn't have enough time to discuss what you wanted to discuss within your allotted time, you could say to that applicant, if you'd like to hang around.
Oh, we've done, oh, we do that, well, we've done that.
Continue.
We've done that on many occasions. We continue it till later in the
That way,
meeting.
people that are here, they know. You've
Right.
heard it, you've opened it at the
They
time.
can
you're supposed
stick
to open
around,
it,
they can stick
and,
around.
You know, but you did, you're gonna revisit it after this,
Right, and
next
usually-
advertised public hearing.
Right, and usually the applicant or their representatives are very happy to do that because they don't want to have to wait another 2 weeks for another meeting. So I say, yeah. we'll sit
If
down.
it's something that you think you can handle and you're inclined to issue a order of conditions that night for something small, then you would just
But
say,
we have
why don't
somebody
you- why
else
don't you stick around?
We have somebody else at 7:30, so we
Yeah.
have to close.
Sometimes we have done that for meetings that are hearings that we cannot close that night, but we want to continue on because there were some points made or there's
We.
tempers that need.
For whatever reason.
But if we wanted to do the public hearings first and then the continuations, we could put it in the agenda that they are scheduled for 30 minutes.
The public
You know,
hearing.
no, the-
continuing.
The easier, the most flexible thing for you guys is to do, is to advertise everybody at one time. And, you know, they're gonna know ahead of time that they have 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and that's it.
Well,
And you're gonna take them.
does the planning board actually tell people right now, because they all do the same time for everybody, and say, do they ever tell them you have 20 minutes?
I don't know if they put a timeline on
I
it,
don't
but
think
they take the hearings, you know, a lot of those hearings are,
How do they choose who goes first?
because, they'll, if it's a big hearing, they're gonna, and it's filling the room, they'll probably take that person first, you know, to clear it
We
out.
never get that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think that is a setup.
We haven't had the Angry Neighbor Festival in years.
Putting one over another.
Because.
it's advertised for 7, nobody can say anything about it.
They,
Everyone is
they
advertised.
can
for
say if
7.
they want, they can't officially.
So you be here at 7 o'clock, so everybody has to be here. That's the way they do it.
Something in the advertisement that says like, yes, it's at, well, I think the 7 would be okay, but like for 7:30. Yes, your meeting is gonna be at 7, but arrive X early. If you put that in the advertisement, then can you move it?
No,
I don't know if you can do that.
no.
I've never seen anything like that where they.
You could.
It's a good idea to have you, but my question is this, if what we're doing a variation with Steve and Neil, I think are proposing, if you say the first public hearings for the next, so.
The first hour of the
We have
meeting.
3. The following meeting, we only have 2 public hearings that we're gonna schedule, and the rest are continuations. It's gonna change, if we're clear on this, from meeting to meeting. What the start time of not the start time, the number of public hearings that we might need to put in that first block. And they may not all fit an hour and a half, so you can't say, okay, at 8:30, we're always gonna go to no continuations, because some meetings. We only have one notice, and you're sitting there for an hour and a half, because you gave them a half an hour, that's all they needed, and now you just gotta kill the time, because you said you weren't gonna start killing. So if we say to everybody, oh, you're coming out on day 30, if you're a continuation, be there, be ready, we'll take you whatever
But
order.
we're managing that through the posted agenda.
Right, so.
It doesn't have to be done till 2 days.
Okay, you'll change your. All right, well, just copy that. Okay,
Here.
all right, so everybody has enough food for thought. Let me know what you think.
But not in their stomachs.
Right, food for thought, but not in your stomachs.
So like in the case of today.
It's just my
we only
bedtime.
had continuations.
Right, 2
So we
continuations.
would start at 8:30?
No, no, you'd have to, what Neil's saying, is on the agenda that's posted there, it would say 7 o'clock and 7 o'clock. Both of them say 7 o'clock, because we want to start the meeting. We would take one and then we would take the other.
So
Right.
let's say start all our continuations at
We
8:30.
don't have to say it there, no. Say, on that agenda, we can say, because we only have the 2 and there, you know, change to 7 o'clock. On the next
All right.
meeting, we might have.
Let's kick this around and
All right,
revisit
so
it next
think about it
time.
a little bit. We don't have any other business. I will ask for motion to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Tina, for hanging in there, Pam for hanging in there, and I think,
So
so.
you approved all of these orders, all these certificate of compliances, right? You made the blanket
Yes.
approval?
Yes. So we can sign those and then.
Then you can
go. But first we need a motion and a second to end the meeting.
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
Second by Donna, thank you. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So the next meeting will be on the 23rd.